than expected. Alright, that ham expired. So I'm gonna have to look at all of that tomorrow. Until I can't no more. I got some fucking beer. I was gonna try and not working. It's a lie. Oh, I've missed that smell. I should have got limes. Oh, we don't sell limes, but we should. I need to go change my pants. I can down beer like nothing. The best of Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Yo, that match was heat. Undertaker and Batista, WrestleMania 23 for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in 2005. 2006. Oh, that match. I haven't seen it. Yeah, there's been a danger. I fucking farted. Slowly building up my savings account. Got 13 in there right now. This looks tilted. No, it's fine. No, but I did a lot today at work. Oh my, I'm over your fucking. I ain't never shared this stream. This match will always be great. Oh my god, why? Look at the champion! Look at the strength! Look at the power of the animal! Have you ever seen anybody? 14 years on the feet of WrestleMania. With a right hand to gun, I've never seen anybody with strength and power to take the Undertaker straight on that choke slam like that. I chase down power of the Undertaker, but Undertaker coming right at me. I am shocked and surprised at the way this match is going to go. Here's the top five. The challenger to take out the champion. What surprises you, Mike? I don't think I've ever seen this much aggression out of the world champion. Look at what he has to say. He has in front of him the most dominant force. I'm shitting in my ass. And new head to champion. John, 10 years ago, at WrestleMania 13, The Undertaker won a championship. Can he do it a decade later here at WrestleMania 23? According to the elbow. So, the short answer, yes. I've seen The Undertaker. I've fought him for over a decade. I know it well. I've never seen Undertaker better. And again, the story of this match, the championship versus the undefeated streak. Undertaker on the apron, the champion Cole, the 305-pounder, Ezra's man. A beautiful champion in Batista with a look falling to the mat below. In my ass, it feels so good. So I did this today. What the fuck? Completely reset our snack cake area and bread. And then I began the coffee today. Almost done the coffee. Then I have to do the entire other side.
This man's big as fuck, and he's flying through the air. Tell John Cena not to be a bitch. I think this is expired. Wow. You know, someone stole one of these at work. January 2024. The reason I say someone stole one is because we have 6 packs of like everything. Someone stole a Coors Light. A Coors Light. A Coors Light. Ew. Oh. Oh yeah, I got more scented stuff. So I got 4 extras, which I'm probably good for a bit. But this is the one day fresh for 100 days. What? First day fresh. First day fresh for 100. Huh? No, these last a year. Holy shit, these last a year. Apparently. But yeah, this is the Gaines sent Moonlight Breeze. I love that. I love that song. It's what I use on my laundry. But I just realized 50 days. That's 100 days, and there's 365 in a year. So that's almost a third of a year. Scott Steiner math, bitch.
I believe you're going to. The champion that takes the back of the ring. Watch this. The running power slam. The 300-pound champion. Gonna be the 300-pound amateur through the table. Hey, look at it. Fight strong. Get the Undertaker. All that Undertaker has been through, Michael. All these great WrestleMania moments. He has never had it brought to him like this. If it takes the shoot into the car again. It's away. He got it now. The Undertaker kicked that into it. And my takes go to the lights. Is the champion frustrated? Or is he still part of the game plan? What the look? Let's do the next impact. That is 200-300 pounds.
Does that the fuck?
I'll tell you, Batista was trained by the Wild Samoans, the Hall of Famers in Allentown, Pennsylvania. He looks like a Wild Samoan. We've been at this matchup. Undertaker showing life. Machina with the high elbow. The Undertaker trying to dig down deep inside one more time. The Undertaker has taken 10 more rounds. I want a belly counter on the champion. Here's the cover. Up and away. The streak is over. No, not like that. A half-second away from ending the 14-0 WrestleMania streak. Look at this. From the Undertaker fight, there's never been a guy who has more fight in his heart and grit in his soul. The Undertaker, he wears scars, Michael, like badges of honor. He smells like smoke from his hands with fire, and damn it, this is where he's home. And that's in battle. Right now, Batista is now powering the Undertaker.
Wow. Eat my ass. Yeah.
The better down. The Undertaker. The Batista cover.
This match was long though.
This is a world
Wait, no, this match was only 20 minutes.
This is why you went all year for WrestleMania.
Dog.
That air ball, these WWE fans, seemingly miles away.
Disappointing. Yes. Oh. I'm gonna fuck you. Fucking. Oh yeah, I gotta clean that. Where's my fireball? Fuck you mean, dog? Eat my ass out on my birthday. Make it feel nice. Yes, 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 yes.
Christmas Spider-Man.
Let's watch cringy ass Kiwis.
Just for Christmas, though.
Doesn't a man in a spandex costume freak you out? No?
Yeah, it kind of freaks me out, but...
Wait, no, I'll be going to bed early, so I need to watch it right now. Yeah, we fell into my wheel. Whew. The complete history of Freddy Krueger. Fuck it.
Frederick Krueger, later known as Fred, or most commonly Freddy, was born in the early 1940s as the son of a nun named Amanda Krueger. She was part of a religious order that ran an asylum known as Weston Hills and did volunteer work there from time to time. When Amanda was young, she was accidentally locked in a ward for the criminally insane over the holidays.
If they ask me anything about today,
When
tomorrow, like,
she was
honestly,
found, she was barely alive and now
I
pregnant
can't
with
tell
a
you.
child.
I can't remember.
The bastard son of 100
I may
While we don't know who the true biological father is, it was probably this guy, just based on their similar appearance. According to Alice Johnson's research on Freddy, Amanda gave birth at that very same asylum. I imagine she delivered the baby here, as opposed to a normal hospital, out of shame, since nuns are supposed to be celibate. She was panicked throughout the entire childbirth, and the baby...
He didn't give a 10 back. Because I never gave her quarters. He took a roll of quarter. Yeah. It's him. Fucking dumbass. This is the beer I like, Corona. Oh wait, I know. I think I get the yeah, it's the Corona Light. That's why it looks different. But Corona's a Corona. Corona is good. If you don't like Corona, I don't like you. He was on his way. He had to get food.
He was going to come out of feet first instead of head first. There's actually some symbolism surrounding the fact that Freddy was born upside down, with the mother being a nun and an upside-down cross being associated with the devil. Because through his disastrous life experiences and eventual demonic intervention, Freddy would indeed become the antithesis to God. To learn about Freddy's childhood, how he became the demon of dreams, the timeline that pieced together using bits of information throughout the franchise, how he represents various scientific sleep phenomena, what the future now holds for Freddy Krueger, stick around to the end of this video. This video is sponsored by Audio. No, please shut up. Just please shut up. But welcome to Horror History. Can you believe I'm finally doing Freddy? And that's actually a good thing for me to introduce this character. In baseball these days, the rules are constantly changing in the Elm Street franchise. Freddy debuted as a dangerous dream spirit in the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, but by the second one, they had already changed the rules, making him possess people in the real world to do his bidding. And throughout the rest of the franchise, the rules keep changing. Obviously, the best version of Freddy would just be to disregard everything after the first one, but that's not why you watch Horror History, is it? I'm going to try to make sense of his entire timeline, but when it comes to the rules, there are obviously going to be inconsistencies. And I, obviously, am going to argue. I think what makes Freddy special for a lot of people is that he was always played.
I didn't puke, but I get that same feeling in my throat whenever I smoke a cigarette at work, so I think I need to quit cigarettes for good this time. So I'm probably gonna give the rest of the pack to my coworker, be like, hey yo, get half the rest of these if you want them. Because like I'm getting a nauseous feeling whenever I smoke a cigarette now. And I fought it all day.
But that almost wasn't the case. In 1985, during the production of Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, New Line Cinema wanted to save money by just putting some nobody in a rubber mascot costume, which would have been funny, but also very bad. And the studio realized that, and England got his check, and probably a huge apology. You can still see the masquerade of Freddy right here, but in this shot, you can't really tell. But you can try to impress your friends with that knowledge. No one will care. Hopefully they'll tell you to get a grip on your life. Of course, there is no Freddy Krueger without his iconic finger blade glove. According to director Wes Craven, this was inspired by his pet cat, who destroyed his couch with its claws, making him explain his human fears of being clawed to death by a saber-toothed tiger in Asia. I guess he was still not over it 12 years later when he had Billy Loomis go to town on that couch in the spring. But to fully understand the bastard cat of $100+ of ruined furniture, we've got to take it back to his childhood and how he learned to never show mercy on the kids. Freddy was put up for adoption from a young age, and if I had to guess,
And the money I do have, I pulled out when I bought something,
this
so...
didn't stop his classmates from learning who he was and bullying him for it, chanting his nickname, Son of 100 Maniacs. By the mid to late 1940s, he had already developed the murderous tendencies that would carry over into his adulthood. At one point, he can be seen smashing the class hamster with a mallet. It seems even then, he'd taken a liking to wearing red and green stripes. Fred's adoptive father is later found to be extremely abusive, so it's likely that the abuse at home and at school is what led Freddy to becoming abusive himself. There's clinical research to back this. The rate of abuse among individuals with a history of abuse is approximately 6 times higher. By his teenage years, Freddy learned to embrace the pain, going so far as to slice himself with a razor while laughing just for entertainment. By this point, taking the belt from his adoptive father was nothing to him, and he mockingly thanks him for the lashes.
You might not secret of pain. If you just stop feeling it, you can start using it.
Is there any basis in reality for this? I think this is obviously an exaggerated version of a real concept, and that concept is masochism, or the tendency to derive pleasure from one's own pain or humiliation. And masochism is often associated with bedroom absurdities. We can only theorize as to why people develop this condition. There are a number of theories out there.
Kink. I don't know.
which I have read about, for the video, guys, for the video. One of which is linked to trauma. The idea is that the victim of the trauma, in this case Freddy, is finding a way to take control of his pain that was previously out of his control as a coping mechanism. It's basically the same idea as when someone says, "You can't fire me, I quit."
You can't put me on hold. I'll put you on hold.
I think it's an interesting thing to keep in mind as we continue forward into the story, because while it's never explicitly said outright, there are some clues that there may be a carnal side to his slashings in Springwood. But despite all of his issues, maybe because of them, he manages to find a wife named Loretta, and together they have a daughter, Catherine Kruger, who was born in 1958. And I know this because we're told that Catherine was taken away from him in 1966, and her adoption papers state that she was adopted at 8 years old. The family lived together on Elm Street. It was at some point during Catherine's life that Fred began kidnapping and killing children in town, earning himself a new nickname, the Springwood Killer. Yeah, keep working on that one, Springwood Gazette headline writers. Freddy also crafted his own blood, using a blowtorch and some welding tools in his basement. For each victim he took, he documented the moment in a scrapbook, as well as an array of souvenirs that he kept in his basement workshop. One day, Catherine moseyed into the basement where her father kept newspaper clippings, photos, and other evidence of his crime. It seems early on, he had an array of prototype gloves in addition to the finger blade glove that we all know and love, like one with shorter
He had a
knuckles
kid?
taped to his fingertips, one with nails affixed to his knuckles, and one with shorter curved claws that looks to be made of copper. While Catherine is browsing through all of this, Freddy is up in the backyard, shaking and beating Loretta for discovering his secret collection. He would indeed take Loretta's life over this, but he covered it up well enough to make police think that she had just gone missing. Mrs. Kruger, wife of Fred Kruger, just disappeared without a trace, according to Detective Smith of the Springwood Police Department. I mean, did they not check his basement? Something tells me that Detective Smith is maybe not Springwood's brightest. Freddy did find out that his daughter also stumbled across the room, but he seemed satisfied with letting her live, and was just threatening her not to tell him. This would eventually come back to bite him in the nose, but not for many more years. Catherine was relocated to the orphanage in 1966, but Freddy would go on terrorizing the town for a couple of years, and the body count would continue to pile higher. Then there was his job.
Wow, what is this place?
Fred Krueger worked here. It's no power.
This is how Freddy managed to evade police as long as he did. I'm guessing after the scare with Loretta, Freddy decided it was too risky to continue working out of his home, and instead took the kidnapped kids to the boiler room at this power plant. It's estimated that he took 20 to 30 kids.
He drove us crazy when we didn't know.
I don't know, maybe the weird guy whose wife disappeared and whose daughter was confiscated by the states? Anyway, it took a couple years, but police finally had that big brain moment and arrested Frederick Krueger in 1968. I know this because this newspaper in the Dream Child announces the death of Freddy's mother and says he was recently arrested in connection with the Springwood child murders. And Amanda Krueger's grave says that she died in 1968. Freddy was put on trial, but in the end, someone didn't sign the search warrant in the right place, and Krueger was set free just like that. The public was furious, with headlines reading, "Child molester acquitted, citizens outraged." And this is actually the only place where Freddy is directly accused of being more than just a child killer. But there are more covert clues, which I will go over as we go along. I'd imagine that he was suspected of both, but the prosecution just wanted to focus on the murder charges because that was their strongest case. In real life, Freddy actually was supposed to be a molester in an early version of the script for the first movie, but they dropped that part around 1982 or 1983 when some high-profile cases involving a daycare started making news cycles, and producers didn't want it to look like they were exploiting it. If you watch my channel, you know that this isn't the only time that director Wes Craven was censored due to political violence. See my video on Scream 3. Anyway, when the law failed to take down Krueger, the parents of Elm Street decided to take things into their own hands.
We found him in an old abandoned boiler room where he used to take his kids. Took gasoline. Poured it all around the place. Made a trail of it out the door.
After that, all they had to do was toss a Molotov cocktail through the window and watch the fireworks. Yet, by some divine prank, Freddy had been chosen by a higher power. Maybe they saw potential in him because of his ability to ignore pain, or maybe it was merely his infamy and notoriety in Springwood that made him an ideal candidate. But in his final moments, Freddy is approached by 3 dream demons who offer him the opportunity to become eternal.
We know what you
I want it all! Place then open up.
and you shall be
Forever!
Not much is known about the dream demons, but they seem to go back to ancient Greek times, suggesting that Freddy's new role as a dream spirit could almost be like a second coming of Epialus, the Greek demon of nightmares. The word Epialus means feverish chill, or daemon who assaults sleepers. The dream demons themselves are depicted outside of the temple of Morpheus, Morpheus being the Greek god of dreams and nightmares.
These are ancient green demons. Supposedly they roam the dreams of the living. They find most
Alcohol and weed mixed together.
and they give
That's
power
a
across the
fact.
mind, turn out nightmares into reality.
In any event, there's a lot of controversy regarding Kruger's death, and each headline seemed to tell a different story. Some say he died in a fire, others suggest suicide, while some detail a vigilante-style killing. The parents hid his remains at Penny Grove Auto Salvage, somewhere that they knew nobody would find his bodies, because nobody ever salvages anything from an auto salvage. Finally, one woman, Marge Thompson, took the knife-clawed glove and hid it in her basement as some kind of reassurance that it wouldn't fall back into the wrong hands. All seemed well for a few years, but then children started dying off again. There's an in memoriam section at the high school, which seems to begin with 3 deaths in 1975, 7 years after Freddie was burned to death. The problem just seemed to get worse from then on, but I'd imagine that nothing could really be done because nobody knew what was causing these deaths. To an outsider, these may have appeared to be cases of SUNS, or sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome. This was a phenomenon observed in Southeast Asian refugees in the early 80s, where seemingly healthy young men just spent more sleep. This syndrome is actually what inspired Craven to write A Nightmare on Elm Street. In an interview with Vulture, he recounted how he read about a boy from Cambodia who was afraid he'd be attacked in his dreams and never wake up. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought this crisis was over. Then, they heard screams in the middle of the night. By the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of the night. While the adults didn't have much in the way of a logical explanation, the kids passed down a nursery rhyme through each generation, warning of the haunting of Fred. But the next line of the song is the most intriguing. 5-6, grab your crucifix, which seems to compare Freddy to some kind of anti-Christ figure that you can protect yourself against using the cross, much like a battle. But is this the case, or is it just urban legend? In March 1981, Nancy Thompson, the daughter of the woman who confiscated Freddy's fingerblade glove, would find out for herself. But this is the point where I have to pause and explain the timeline a little bit more. These movies don't often reference the date, so I had to do a little puzzle solving. One of the few concrete dates is June 1989, when the graduation ceremony occurs in Nightmare on Elm Street 5. From there, we can work back. In Elm Street 4, Alice has a driver's license, so at the latest, this is 1987. Kristen's tombstone states that she was born in 1969, and she's still in high school, which means at the latest, it's 1987. So Elm Street 4 takes place in 1987, and this is backed up by the poster for the movie Prison, which came out in 87. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 takes place a little bit before the fourth one, because in 4 they start school together in the fall. So Dream Warriors is most likely spring or summer of that same year. And in Dream Warriors, Nancy...
shit. So much energy. Woo.
Says this. Rolls.
6 years ago, he killed my parents.
Which means the original A Nightmare on Elm Street took place in 1981. And according to Nancy's diary, which is found in the second movie, the weird dreams began around March 15.
March 15th. He comes to me at night. Horrible, ugly, dirty, under the sheets, tearing at my nightgown with his steel
Ooh, this
claws.
is fire.
His name is Fred. He's trying to figure the boiler. He wants to kill me.
But why does he want to kill her? It's really pretty simple. The more children's souls he collects, the more powerful he becomes. And he also needs to make himself known as an urban legend in order to strike fear into the town. Because if people forget about him, he'll be in danger of losing the power to invade dreams.
Yo, this shit smells strong.
So in March 1981, he chooses 4 new targets in his old neighborhood on Elm Street. Nancy Thompson, Tina Gray, Rod Lane, and Glenn Lance. And each of them have dreams where Freddy begins his scare tactics. Tina's dream includes the appearance of a lamb in a damp hallway, which represents the sacrificial lamb found in many religions, a clue about her becoming the first sacrifice of the Friend Group. From there, she goes to the boiler room, which is Freddy's main domain. She's cornered in front of a furnace, flames blazing behind her. This room represents hell, and Freddy represents the devil that resides in it. Like something that could only happen in a nightmare, Freddy suddenly appears behind her, and she awakens with a scream, finding her nightgown torn. I think you could also look at the torn clothing as a more subtle way of Craven, including the detail about Freddy also being a different type of predator when it comes to the minors that he's hunting. Nancy and Rod both experience similar dreams that night, so the next day, both couples stay at Tina's. Nancy, at first glance, seems to be protected by the crucifix in the bedroom that she's staying in because Freddy seems to retract after starting to cross the threshold. Tina, on the other hand, would not be so lucky and finds herself in another nightmare scenario. If you really want to fully understand everything there is to know about Freddy Krueger, it's important to also understand his creator, Wes Craven, writer and director of the original movie. And the best way to do this is to check out his biography, Wes Craven, The Man of His Nightmares, now available on Audible. Starting from his childhood, this book takes you through the intricacies of his career and personal life, including some lesser-known details of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Right now, with my link, users can get a free trial of Audible. As an Audible member, you get to choose one title a month to keep. As a member, you also get full access to a growing selection of included audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts. It's easy to download from any device with the Audible app.
This shit is supposed to make
It's the perfect
one
way to
hit
create time to check out more titles, whether you're relaxing, on the go, or multitasking. You can even listen to Audible to drown out the mundanities of life and the incessant flow of time leading to your mortality. But it's easy. How do we get Audible free for 30 days? It's easy. Just go to audible.com/CZsWorld or text CZsWorld to 500-500, and you can figure it out from there. That's audible.com/CZsWorld or text CZsWorld to 500-500 for your free trial. Freddy lures Tina into an alley using a mysterious voice. Then, after rolling a trash can lid in her direction to startle her, reveals his horrifying appearance. Arms extended unnaturally to scrape the wall with his bladed glove. Tina's first reaction is to seek help in God, but Freddy, persistently in opposition to religion, mocks her God with a response.
Please, God.
He chases her back to the house, demonstrating the ability to warp around the dream scene, slice off his own fingers with no pain, and have his face torn away. Remember, he's been doing this for some time at this point, and has already developed tricks to terrify and torture his victims using dream logic. He pins her down and slashes her through the chest before dragging and tossing her body all around the room.
Jesus.
The others are woken up by the commotion and don't manage to get any sleep after seeing the scene. So it isn't until the next day that Freddy is able to target Nancy, who falls asleep in class. Freddy is able to manipulate the dreams of his victims, so he causes Nancy to see her best friend in a body bag, the first in a trail of breadcrumbs that he uses to draw her in. He shapeshifts into a hall monitor, who she runs into on her way to the basement, which turns out to be none other than Freddy's boiler. The school basement never disappoints in a horror movie. I remember when I was in high school on one of the last days, I was just walking around, not in class, and I saw the principal walking around and asked him to show me the basement. It's the one place in the school that I had never seen. And he did. He didn't even question why I wasn't in class. And it just goes to show. Sometimes you just gotta ask for things. Like asking you to subscribe. Freddy emerges from behind the boiler and slices his own chest just as he used to as a boy, but this time it reveals maggots and green ooze. He laughs maniacally as he chases her around, but unlike Tina, Nancy manages to wake herself up at the end by reaching for a hot pipe. But thanks to the power given to him by the dream demons, any injuries that he dishes out in dreams also carry through to real life. And Nancy wakes up, realizing that the burn is real. Not to be deterred, Freddy continues to haunt Nancy's dreams whenever she falls asleep, like when she dozes off in the bathtub and he pulls her under the surface, once again hinting at that metaphor that the studio didn't want to include later. In another dream, Freddy visits Ron, who's being held in jail as a suspect in Tina's death. He gives chase, continuing to use images of Tina to torture her, but ultimately, Nancy's alarm clock saves her. Perhaps wanting an easier target, or perhaps realizing it'll have a psychological effect on Nancy if another one of her friends dies, Freddy turns his efforts to Rod, kills him in his dream, and stages it as a suicide. He goes for another round with Nancy afterwards. However, I don't have the details because we see this dream from an outside perspective while Nancy is being studied at the Katya Sleep Institute. However, it must have been pretty traumatic because she wakes up with a fresh trio of cuts on her arm, a strand of gray hair, and a souvenir.
But something happened my theory.
At some point the next night, Freddy calls the phone in her bedroom. She's expecting to hear from her boyfriend, Glenn, but it turns out to be more of a nuisance call. A tongue protrudes out of the receiver and licks her, causing her to spike the phone and destroy it. That's still preferred to getting a telemark. It wouldn't be the last time that Freddy used his tongue to freak out a victim, and it all ties into the inappropriate subtext of his character. But Nancy isn't even asleep for this, so how did Freddy get to her in the waking world? At this point, Nancy is running on empty. She's mostly stayed awake 24/7 for the last few days, and her body really needs sleep. There's something called hypnagogic hallucination, also known as waking dreams. These are brief hallucinations.
Fuck? We should just throw those Muffin Kings away. No one buys them. Only losers buy them, or old people. But still.
You kicked me 3 times last night. The first one I didn't even see it coming. The bell rang. Wow, it took my head off. What was that? Gotcha, I think going. Bet you're feeling better. I was aiming for sleep. You kicked me 3 times last night. The first one I didn't even see it coming. The bell rang. Y'all ever heard of? It's Tom. I said him.
Hallucinations
Class is
take
back in
place
session.
as you're falling asleep. They can be visual, auditory, or physical. You may have experienced this in a minor capacity. You're about to fall asleep and you hear someone say your name, but there's nobody there. Or you hear your phone buzz, but there's no notification. Now that I've looked into hypnagogic hallucination, I actually think it may explain a mystery that's always haunted me. I used to do production sound for movies and video, and in one indie film that I did, they were putting us up in an Airbnb, and I got stuck rooming with this guy that snored super loud, like incredibly loud. You would not believe how loud it was if you heard it in person. So it was kind of hard to fall asleep, but just as I was finally falling asleep, I feel myself get bounced. Like someone had jumped on the air mattress I was sleeping in. So immediately I wake up and I look around and there's nobody there. The guy's still snoring on the other side of the room and there was no one else around. I'm not a believer when it comes to ghosts, but I've never been able to explain that one until I learned about waking dreams, which can include physical hallucinations as well. So I think that's what's happening to Nancy here. Her body is shutting down and those hallucinations are starting to happen while she's still awake, allowing Freddy to affect her in the real world in a minor way. But meanwhile, across the streets, Glenn has fully fallen asleep, and just like Nancy was pulled underwater in the bath, Freddy pulls Glenn down into a void in his bed, moments before a fountain of blood explodes from him, completely repainting the ceiling of the room. With all 3 of Nancy's friends now dead, Freddy uses them against her as she intentionally travels back into Dreamland, hoping to bring Freddy out into the real world with her. As she travels down into the boiler room, she hears echoes of her dead friends calling to her and Freddy's laughter as he taunts her. He stalks her from around corners as she goes deeper into the boiler, eventually chasing her through dream space back to her house. But to his surprise, instead of running from him, she tackles him just before her alarm goes off and takes her back to the world of the awake. I don't want to get too picky here because none of this is real, but I feel like if Freddy Krueger was real, that this plan wouldn't work, because clocks never seem to work properly in a dream. And also, you can have a dream that feels really long, but it was actually pretty short in real world time. They do an amazing job of conceptualizing this in the movie Inception. Anyway, Freddy is carried through, back into the real world for the first time in 13 years. But that's not going to stop him from going after her. Only he finds that in this world, everything has been rigged with traps. He opens a locked door only to be gut-checked with a hammer, trips over a wire that sets off an exploding light bulb, and gets bombarded with a jug of kerosene to set the stage for a Freddy-flavored barbecue. But this is nothing that he hasn't dealt with before. The now flaming Freddy stays hot on her heels, literally, but he's door-checked back down the stairs. Still, he's somehow able to break out of the basement and sneak past Nancy, up the stairs, and into the room of Nancy's mother, Marge, one of the parents responsible for killing him the first time and stealing his blood. Still ablaze, he strangles her in her sleep until Nancy finds him and breaks a chair over his back. But when the flames are extinguished by Nancy's dad, they see Marge's charred remains sink back into the dreamscape, with Freddy nowhere to be found. My interpretation is that since Freddy found Marge asleep, he was able to use her to escape back into the world of dreams, taking her life in the process. But this battle is not over yet. As Nancy takes a moment to herself in her room, Freddy takes the opportunity to stretch the fabric of reality, and apparently the fabric of this bedsheet, once more. But this time, Nancy seems to have him figured out.
You think it was gonna get away from me?
I know you too well now, Freddy.
Nancy is finally able to divest him of his power by turning away and depriving him of the energy he needs by refusing to believe he's real or be afraid. As he tries to stab her in the back, he disintegrates into a cosmic shadow and disappears. As I mentioned a lot, the rules tend to change a lot in this franchise, but there are a few other ones that are consistent with Freddy's defeat here. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Nancy further explains how she eventually beat Freddy on the last page of her diary.
He is evil itself. I know now that I brought him into our world. All did. Gave him all the energy he needed. Our screams were all he needed.
The concept is touched on again in Freddy vs. Jason, which we'll get to. Despite seeming to find the key to fend off Freddy, Nancy's defense would not stand forever. After nearly trapping Nancy in his nightmare convertible, she was somehow able to escape Freddy's grasp and wake up again. She was quickly becoming his greatest rival, but that rivalry would be interrupted because in the aftermath of Freddy's 1981 rampage, Nancy was determined to have gone crazy, or at least that's the story that circulated the town.
The chick was locked in there by her mother. She went crazy.
She was put on an experimental dream suppression drug known as Hypnosil, and surprisingly, this seemed to do the trick. With no more dreams, Freddy had no way to access her, and he eventually had to move on to a new target. It would appear that none of these other kids gave him quite as much trouble as Nancy had. Remember, these names in the memoriam are just the high school fatalities, and don't account for any kids of other ages. But he claimed at least 6 more teens in 1982, at least 7 in 1983,
Jesus.
literally pages worth in 84 and 85. The next notable victim to put up enough of a fight to warrant the creation of another Nightmare on Elm Street movie came in 1986, 5 years after the Nancy Thompson show.
I know this thing is 5 years old.
You know her?
Before my time.
A man named Ken Walsh buys the vacant house, the now infamous 1428 Elm Street, and his son Jesse Walsh takes up residence in Nancy's old room. It doesn't take long for his dreams to get dark, including one where Freddy is a school bus driver who drives them into a giant fissure to hell, and one where he sees Freddy retrieving the fingered blade glove from the boiler in the basement and asks for his help on some special work.
We need you, Jesse. We got special work to do here, you and me. You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Necessary information, Jesse is gay, so Krueger's remarks here are once again playing into those psychosexual themes, which I talked about more in my Things You Missed episode on Freddy's Revenge. But to quickly sum it up, the Jesse arc follows different rules than the Nancy arc, and this time, Freddy's goal is to take over Jesse's body and make him do the killing, as a metaphor for the shame that Jesse feels by still being closeted about his sexuality.
I'm watching the history of Freddy Krueger, so I'm like, the fuck?
Comes out again the next night when Jesse has a dream where it's so hot that everything in his room is melting. So he goes to the basement where he finds Freddy's glove hidden in the furnace, and Freddy encourages him to try putting it on and kill him. The following evening, the Walsh's pet bird breaks out of its cage, flies around, attacks the family, then bursts into flames.
There's gotta be a rational explanation. The animals just don't explode into flames for no reason.
Excellent observation, Ken. The moment also represents the point where Freddy isn't just limited to dreams anymore, for some reason. His next move comes later that night, while Jesse's gym teacher is making him run laps as punishment for sneaking into a bar. Freddy brings all the gym equipment to life and uses it to attack the coach, eventually tying him up with a jump rope before taking control of Jesse's body and using it to slash Coach Schneider in the back. When the fog clears, Jesse finds himself wearing the glove that he found the other night. He screams when he realizes what he's done, which suggests that this time Freddy is using his powers to simulate another sleep phenomenon, somnambulism, more commonly known as sleepwalking. But once again, it's not very realistic that Freddy would be able to control sleepwalking. Sleepwalking occurs during non-REM sleep, during which there are no dreams. So when someone sleepwalks, they aren't actually acting out their dreams, it's more of a misfired signal in the brain. But we have seen Freddy demonstrate an ability to toss around someone whose dream he's invading, like what happened with Tina and Glenn, for example, so maybe he's just doing that in a more controlled way to manipulate Jesse into doing whatever he wants. More weird nightmares would follow. The next night, he found Freddy's glove moving on its own in the drawer, and even dreamt of his own sister jump roping while singing the Freddy Krueger nursery rhyme. In the morning, their toaster catches fire, even though it's not plugged in.
Craziest damn thing I've ever seen.
Dad, what about the bird that exploded yesterday? In the evening, Freddy possesses Jesse's body again, and he visits his sister's room. But when he speaks out to her, Freddy's voice comes out.
Wake up, little girl.
So then, she does wake up, clearly sees her brother standing there, and asks what time it is. And when he tells her, it's in Jesse's voice again, because she's no longer asleep.
It's late. Go back to sleep.
So which one is it? You want her to wake up or go to sleep? Make up your mind. Now, up until this point, Freddy has kind of been able to fly under the radar. Some of his victims drew a big police presence, but because he only takes one victim at a time, and because all of his victims are asleep, there are only a couple witnesses who know that he's behind it. So that would all change soon, because Lisa Weber, a girl from Jesse's school who has a crush on him, holds a big pool party, and of course, invites Jesse. She tries to get it on with him in the cabana, but Freddy demonstrates his control by, once again, materializing a huge rotting tongue in the real world. For Jesse, this represents his true sexuality, which he's trying to hide. So when he realizes he's unable to control it, he gets out of there. Which is actually smart. Good job, Jesse. Except he goes to visit the boy he most likely has an eye on, Grady, which was not smart, because as he's there, he literally sees himself transform into Freddy, which is an agonizing process for him. Jesse, or Freddy, it's not really clear which one Grady can actually see, puts on the finger blade glove and gashes right through him as he bangs on the door for help. Rip Grady. With the floodgates now open for Freddy to manipulate stuff in the real world, he goes back to sabotage the pool party, locking everyone in, blowing up the lights, heating the pool to the point of boiling, and worst of all, setting all the hot dogs on fire. Meanwhile, inside, Freddy takes over Jesse's body and attacks Lisa. He starts eating her leg, for some reason. Okay. But she gets away and tries to call out to Jesse, believing that he's still in there somewhere. She actually gets through to him, but it's clear that he's given up hope.
Kill me, Lisa. Please kill me.
And since Freddy's only real goal is to kill people and harvest souls, he just finds this amusing. I heard a knock upon my door the other day. Natural reaction. Lisa stabs him in the shoulder, but even in the real world, that does no good. This is the same guy who used to cut himself all day for fun. He throws Lisa against the wall, but for now, he's gonna let her live. It's always hard for me to analyze his actions when they don't make any sense, but here goes. Freddy knew that Lisa loved Jesse, so he didn't see her as a threat and decided to go after the other guests at the pool party first. Everyone outside is confused by the commotion, then this happens.
What's going on?
During this onslaught, nobody can escape because they're locked in, and the fence is burning hot. Chaos ensues. The pool catches fire, and at least 4 teens are killed before Lisa's dad makes it outside with his gun. But knowing that Jesse is still in there somewhere, Lisa actually prevents him from firing at Freddy. I guess the decision to keep her alive paid off for him, at least in the short term. Perhaps realizing the situation, though, like that he could potentially get shot and die in the real world, he just walks to the edge of the party and bursts into flames. That too makes no sense. I tried, okay? He goes back to his old base of operations, the boiler room, at the now abandoned power plant, but soon finds that he's not alone. It isn't long before Freddy realizes he has a visitor. Lisa is still determined to get back her friend and crush, Jessie, so Freddy stalks her from afar and tortures her with a series of hallucinations before aggressively appearing before her and nearly slicing her face open.
Jesse, I know you're in there. Stop him.
No, Jesse's dead.
He's about to finish her off when Lisa hears Jessie's voice and confesses her love for him. And this actually seems to physically hurt Freddy. For example, the spot that she stabbed him in earlier starts bleeding. And the more she says she loves him, the more pain he seems to be in. Lisa kisses him, and Freddy goes up in flames. His skin burns away and he turns back into Jesse. Sticking with the sexuality metaphor, this is Jesse taking back hold of his ability to repress his feelings. He knows he'll hurt Lisa if he comes out. He knows people in his life will be ashamed of him. That's just the reality of the time period he lives in. So he's got to get control of it, and in a literal sense, he gets control of Freddy, the hidden monster that is manipulating his actions. But like Nancy 5 years before, the victory is only temporary, and before Jesse goes back to school, he dreams of another runaway box, where Freddy's hand bursts out of the classmate's chest and presumably makes good on his earlier promise and finishes him off. After 1986, the records of kids who died are not as well kept, because it seems like it's just become such a common thing that the school can't even keep up with it. We do find out about a kid in early 1987 who is most likely the Freddy victim.
We lost a kid about a month ago in Fairview. I don't know where he got the razors, but he cut off his own eyelids to stay away.
That's funny, I did the same thing when I was trying to make it through watching the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. At some
wasn't
point,
that
Freddy
bad.
finished taking out most all of the kids with connections to the group of parents who killed him in 1968. But there were a few leftovers who no longer live there. These kids survived their first encounters with Freddy, but still incurred injuries during their nightmares, which made it look like they had each attempted suicide. One example is Kristen Parker, most likely in spring 1987. Kristen dreamed that she was outside 1428 Elm Street and tried to save a little girl who wandered inside. As she tries to fend off Freddy in her dream, he manipulates things in the real world so that it looks like she slit her wrist. Her mom catches her and sends her to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital, where she joins several other kids who are deemed to be suicidal because of their encounters with Freddy. They were essentially held there against their will.
Oh yeah, this is the Dream Warriors. Stupid ass movie.
4 teenage deaths occurred, both suicides. County health officials are at a loss to explain this alarming trend.
For Freddy, there are pros and cons to this strategy. On one hand, he can continue to consume more souls while covering up each death with something else, meaning his victims will be less informed and less prepared to fight him. The downside is that the public doesn't credit him with each kill, and the town's belief in him and fear of him is part of what gives him power, as we saw with Nancy. And speaking of Nancy, Freddy's greatest rival would resurface as a therapist at Weston Hills. As a survivor, she's the only one who can help the kids who are captive there, because she's the only one who believes them. During Kristen's next nightmare, she's attacked by a giant worm incarnation of
I
Freddy,
forgot
and she
about
pulls
this.
Nancy into her dream. Nancy finds a glass shard and stabs the creature in the eye, allowing Kristen to get free. When Freddy sees Nancy's face, he recognizes her as the one who got away. Kristen was able to pull Nancy into her dream because of a unique ability she had, which would create a new challenge for the Springwood slasher. Previously, he never really had to worry about his victims teaming up on him. The worst they could do was stand by to wake someone up if they sensed a nightmare. Kristen's ability made her especially dangerous, allowing the kids to fight back together. So Freddy got to work taking out each of her friends in their own individual dreams. One patient, Philip, is an amateur puppeteer, so Freddy enters his dream and turns him into a human puppet, using his veins as strings.
Oh my
marching
God, I
into a
remember
window
this.
and cutting him loose, causing him to fall to his death in both the dream and the real world. Probably the most disturbing and creative kill in all of Freddy's history. The next night, he goes after Jennifer, an aspiring TV star, and pulls her head through the TV in her room. During a group hypnosis session shortly after, a mute patient named Joey wanders away from the group when he's distracted by a nurse that he has a crush on. Wait, Joey, she's a trap! Yeah, it turns out to be Freddy, who shoves his giant tongue down the kid's throat, then uses it to restrain him above the bed, which falls away into a giant pit of fire. It's always the tongue with this guy. I swear, I could do a whole video on just the history of Freddy Krueger's tongue. I'm getting flashbacks to the Grimace video at this point. It once again hints at the two themes that I keep coming back to. Freddy is implied to be a predator through his actions, and he's associated with the devil by suspending Joey over what is essentially a pit to hell.
No! Not into the pit! It burns!
Meanwhile, all the other patients are together in the group session, discovering how they can be whoever they want to in their dreams.
In my dreams, I'm beautiful.
Okay. Whatever you say. Freddy traps them using the same tactic he used at the pool party the previous year. When they try to escape, they realize the doorknobs are burning hot. It's kind of an inconsistency, because in the first movie, touching something hot would wake you up, but maybe this is different because these kids are in hypnosis. The room transforms into an industrial silo type thing, but luckily a doctor discovers the sleeping group. However, because Joey was trapped by Krueger in the dream, he's unable to awaken, and he falls into a deep coma. It would be easy for him to just kill Joey at this point and take his soul, but Freddy wants revenge on Nancy for getting the best of him 6 years prior, and uses Joey as a hostage. Kristen pulls everyone into the dream world to save him, but they're immediately ambushed and sent into their own little breakout dream. Kristen dreams
He's
about
like,
her
"Come
mother
and
bringing
get me,
home guests,
bitch."
who turns out to be Freddy in a bow tie, but she's able to use some parkour moves to escape. Taryn finds herself in an alley where she notices some graffiti that says Taryn plus Freddy enclosed in a heart. Once again, Freddy is inappropriately tying himself to these kids in a romantic context. This would continue throughout the rest of Freddy's history. He takes the form of a pinup model, asks a girl if she wants to suck face, asks a girl if she wants to make babies, and even takes the form of another predator. Look, I'm not Chris Hansen, I'm not going to point out every single time he does something like this. You get the idea. Freddy starts to use each kid's weaknesses against him. Taryn is a former addict, so Freddy transforms his finger blades into syringes, which he plunges into her. Will is disabled in the real world. He can only walk in his dreams, so Freddy runs him down with what I can only describe as a giant BDSM wheelchair. He tries to conjure up some dream magic to destroy the chair and vanquish Freddy, but it's not enough to do anything.
Sorry, kid. I don't believe it's very capable.
It's cool to see Freddy evolving as a villain. In the beginning, he just terrorized Nancy and her friends with generic nightmare stuff, but now he's learned to tailor each nightmare towards whoever he's going after. The evolution fits nicely, because it makes it all that more important for the remaining survivors to team up if they want to have a chance against him. They have strength in numbers, because he can only tailor the nightmare to fit one person. But, unfortunately for the group, there is only one person that he wants more than anyone, and their showdown would be 6 years in the middle.
Come get me, bitch.
The group finds Joey in the boiler room, which looks even more like an underworld realm than ever before, with their friends suspended over an even deeper hell pit. Freddy confronts Nancy, who foolishly demands that he let Joey go, and she has to run to save him from falling into the pit. This gives Kruger the perfect opportunity to push her in, but her new friends come to her rescue. Kristen knocks him back with a flying jump tackle.
Okay, Angus is gonna knock down these chips using a flying jump tackle.
What?
Like I said, flying jump tackle, and Kincaid smashes him over the head with a giant metal pipe. I also like how Kincaid's dream power is just him being strong, even though he already is strong in the real world. However,
That makes no
Kincaid is able to
sense.
stop him and lift him into the air with one arm while choking him. But their teamwork continues to be their advantage, as Nancy finds a metal stake and thrusts it through Freddy's gut, which surprises him, but he simply laughs and pulls it out. Nancy comments on how he's never been this strong, and Freddy shows her why, by revealing the screaming souls of the children that get his brain. Meaning that with each victim he takes, he gets more and more powerful in the dream world. Keep that in mind because it's going to explain some anomalies later. But even with this additional power, he's not able to finish off
smoking on
Kincaid
tonight.
because he vanishes to go fight another battle. Apparently,
Supposed
he
to
can
be
only
fire,
be in one
fire.
place at a time. And he's got to go clash with one of the doctors from the hospital and Nancy's dad, who are together trying to bury his bones in the real world. They believe laying Freddy's bones to rest will end his curse. They're basically completely wrong about this, but for whatever reason, Freddy still wants to defend his bones, so he brings them to life and engages in combat as Skelly Freddy. Maybe the reason for this is because it was his one chance to finally get back at Nancy's dad, one of the parents who lynched him 19 years prior. And he does just that, throwing Donald into a stake and impaling him. He
Damn.
also manages to knock out the doctor and does a little celebratory emote. I actually had to do a double take right here, because I thought I was seeing actual footage of me whenever I have a video pop on. With that threat taken care of, Freddy returns to the dream world and freaks out the kids using a hall of mirrors, which very much needs to be a room if they ever do another Dream Warriors maze at Horror Nights. Each of them is pulled into a separate mirror, but Joey saves the day by screaming out for the first time and shattering the glass to save them, which seems to hurt Freddy as well. But he has one more trick up his striped sleeve. This time, he takes the form of Nancy's father, as if he's entering the dream world to tell her that he's crossed over. And this honestly doesn't make sense. You're not dreaming if you're dead, but it's enough to trick Nancy into letting her guard down. He turns back into Freddy and stabs her in the stomach. It looks like it may be over for the rest of the Dream Warriors as well, but with the last of her strength, Nancy jumps on his back and drives his own finger blades into his chest. And for the first time, Freddy is beaten on his home turf. But in the end, Nancy's sacrifice would basically go in vain, because there's still a light on at 1428 Elm Street. Survivors, Kristen, Kincaid, and Joey, did get a little break from their stripes-weathered saboteur, but when they went back to school that fall, Kristen began to see signs of his return. Yes, this is Kristen. She got a makeover, okay? She also got a boyfriend named Rick. I personally wouldn't be rushing out to date the new girl fresh out of a psychiatric hospital, but Rick doesn't seem to mind. In fact, they're so in love that they apparently don't notice this huge glowing slash in the lockers, more evidence of Freddy's imminent return. And that return would become a reality that
Yo,
evening.
this shit
Kincaid
smells
has a dream about the
fire.
auto salvage where Freddy's bones were buried earlier that year. He sees his dog prodding at the burial spot and goes to take a piss, but instead emits a stream of flame, and Kincaid watches as crevices in the earth open up to make way for Freddy's reassembly. His flesh rots in reverse until his true hellish form is completely restored.
You shouldn't have buried me. I'm not dead.
No, actually, he is dead, but as long as the dream demons still reside within him, he has the ability to come back and haunt more teenage dreams. So even when Kincaid pushes a car from above to crush him, he just respawns again. And eventually, Kincaid's luck runs out and he gets a gut full of finger blades. So at this point, there's not much for me to analyze. It's pretty obvious that no amount of killing Freddy in the dream world will ever do away with him. And it would be some time before anyone else figures out how to bring him out into the real world. His immediate goal is to finish off the Elm Street children that managed to escape him at Weston Hills. After Kincaid, that continues with Joey, who is once again tricked by Freddy taking the form of his crush, this time a pin-up model from a poster, before he's pulled down into his water bowl, kind of similar to what happened to Nancy in the bathtub. Kristen tries to dream about a place that Freddy would never go, and finds herself at the beach, but Freddy's glove emerges from the water like a shark fin. Not even hitting land slows it down, and with a blast, she finds her worst nightmare standing before her with some pretty stylish shit. But not as stylish as my YouTube specs. Alice's choice of venue ends up working against her when Freddy manipulates the dream, turning beach sand into quicksand. But as Kristen sinks down, she emerges in a decayed Elm Street house and soon finds herself in the boiler room. Fittingly, he was chasing her to the spot where he had ended the lives of so many of the neighborhood's kids before her.
Elm Street's last breath.
And there's a good reason he allowed her to be the last survivor. He didn't want her to use her special ability to pull in any Dream Warrior reinforcements, as she had in the past. But due to her fear, she accidentally pulls someone into her dream anyway. This is Alice Johnson, Kristen's classmate and the sister of her boyfriend. Realizing her mistake, Kristen tries to shield the innocent Alice by attacking Freddy, but he effortlessly grabs her and hurls her into the raging furnace. Certainly one of the most brutal ways to go since Freddy himself was burned to death. It's a moment of closure for him. The last link to the Elm Street families who killed him would go out the same way that he did. He proudly displays his collection of tortured souls in preparation for absorbing Kristen, but even in death, she proves to be difficult. And instead of being absorbed by him, she passes through his body to Alex, in order to pass her dream powers on to her friend. Upon waking, Alice sees a new postcard on her mirror, greetings from hell. And as we've come to expect, Freddy is holding Kristen almost like a lover. Alice and Rick rush over to Kristen's house to find her room already in flames. It was too late to save her. So that was it. The Elm Street parents tried to get their revenge on Freddy, but in the end, he won, finishing off every last one of their descendants. But that didn't mean he was about to step away and quietly begin his retirement. And I can actually relate to this. When I first started getting serious about YouTube, my goal was to reach 10,000 subscribers. But when I did that, that silver plaque started looking not so out of reach, so I went for 100,000 subscribers. And when I got that, the glint of gold caught my eye, and I thought for sure I'd chill out after 1 million. And at first I did, but then I started to develop new goals, some of which you'll find out about in about a month. I think I've learned that if you have that drive to succeed, you're never going to be fully satisfied. And Freddy definitely has that drive. Maybe that's why the Dream Demons chose him. After eliminating the last of the Elm Street kids, he would broaden his hunt to the entire town of Spring.
There's some gas.
Freddy used each of the kids' weaknesses against them, so as he turned his attention to the entire city, he decided to have some fun and toy with their fears as well. The first victim is Alice's asthmatic friend Sheila, who's worried about her astrology test. When she dozes off during it, Freddy sucks the oxygen out of her skull, causing her eyes to sink in and her skin to dry up. Rick is still struggling with grief over his girlfriend's death, and he apparently falls asleep on the toilet and sees Freddy use the form of Kristen to entice him before scaring the crap out of him. Pun actually not intended, believe it or not. The bathroom stall turns into an elevator ride down to a Japanese dojo, which for some reason is decorated with an early prototype of the IGN logo. Rick's karate skills actually help him get the better of Freddy, but Krueger takes a cheap shot by launching his glove into his opponent before he can react. Alice's next dream features her getting sucked into the screen at a movie theater, which lands her at her place of work. Her biggest fear is waiting tables her entire life, so Freddy shows her imagery of an older version of herself still working. But when he appears at the counter next to her, he doesn't try to kill her, and there's a reason for it, which is demonstrated when the older version of Alice brings him a pizza topped with meatballs resembling the souls of his victims. Because of her uncontrolled new ability to pull others into her dreams, Alice is essentially serving her friends right up to Freddy. And next in line is her friend Deb, whose greatest fear became cockroaches after she found one in her food earlier that week. Nobody showed her the Babadook, okay? During her workout set, she finds she has an unexpected spotter, who pushes her barbell down and snaps her elbows. Roach-like appendages jut out from her broken arms, and she slowly turns into an insect, and finds that she's a prisoner in a giant bug shroud. It's a new twist on the commonly reported nightmare of running in slow motion, which we saw before with Nancy and Kristen. Freddy watches through a small hole as she becomes her own worst nightmare, then crushes her inside the Roach Motel. He also does something that we've never seen him do before. In order to prevent Alice and her love interest Dan from interfering, he puts them in an infinite loop
this
where
is
they meet
gonna
up at the diner, then go to
smack.
save Dad, but just keep resetting back to the diner where they have to start all over again. What they're experiencing is another representation of a real-world sleep phenomena known as a false awakening. Most people have experienced this to some extent. You're dreaming and then you wake up and start going through your morning routine, then you actually wake up and realize it was all a dream. For most, this will only happen once, but for others, it can happen like 10 times, hence the name false awakening. As with everything related to dreams, we only have theories about why this happens, no hard scientific conclusions. For normal people, it's often associated with anxiety for an important event, like a job interview, or like Halloween. That's an important event. In Alice's case, she may be stressed out about saving her friend. Others have suggested that small noises or interruptions can interrupt your REM sleep without fully waking you up, causing your dream to reset to something familiar. Another theory is the proto-consciousness theory, which is basically the idea that your brain is trying to prepare you for the real world by showing you a dream similar to your reality. This obviously wouldn't apply to Alice because she's not the only one manipulating her dreams. There's evidence to suggest a link between false awakenings and lucid dreaming. Lucid dreams are just when you're dreaming, but you know that you're dreaming. So the false awakening could be your brain trying to trick you into thinking that you're not dreaming. This is much more likely what's going on with Alice and Dan. Each time the dream resets, they don't realize that they're dreaming until several repetitions in, when they finally figure it out. Again, I have to give credit to the movie Inception for conceptualizing this so well. The protagonist, Cobb, is essentially a professional lucid dreamer. He uses totems to help him determine if he's dreaming or not.
It's one of those girls spinning the dream, remember?
But there's a chilling concern that rises throughout the movie that he may be getting lost in an infinite dream without realizing it. Personally, I find that idea more haunting than Freddy Krueger ever could be. But in Alice and Dan's case, they do escape from the dream when Freddy breaks the loop by appearing in the middle of the road. Alice tries to vehicular manslaughter him, but when she crashes into him, it's like hitting a baller, and the truck is crushed like a can. They wake up realizing they've crashed into a tree. Dan is rushed to the hospital where he's put under and has to deal with the dreams about Freddy Krueger as his surgeon, but Alice is okay, and intentionally goes to sleep so she can try to enter his dream and save him. She's able to stall long enough for Dan to wake up, thus making him disappear from the dream to safety, which should technically be the end of the dream, because it was his dream to begin with, I think. But in light of the constantly changing rules in the Elm Street franchise, the nightmare continues, and Alice finds herself in a church face-to-face with the devil himself. She fully realizes her title as the Dream Master by combining all of her friends' talents to fight Freddy. She uses Kristen's gymnastics, Rick's karate, Debbie's strength, and Sheila's technology. But, as we've seen before, Freddy can easily heal himself.
Eternal.
And this is true. It's very well established that you can't kill Freddy in the dream world. But what Alice does is essentially the next best thing. Using a broken shard of stained glass, she forces him to look at his reflection, and he sees all of the screaming souls of his victims trapped inside of him. This causes him immense pain. Alice hits him with a blast of light, and an arm bursts out from within him as the souls of the dead attempt to climb their way out of his confines. The very souls that gave him power are now keeping him pinned down against the trellis. And finally, his face bursts open, allowing each of them to escape freely into the night, thanking Alice for finally ending their suffering. Although Freddy's skin, his sweater, and his glove are left in a heap on the ground, and things do go back to normal for a short while, it's only a matter of time before the nightmares would return. Shortly before her high school graduation in June 1989, Alice would begin seeing visions in her dreams detailing the conception and birth of Frederick Krueger at the insane asylum. The last of these dreams shows him being reborn and growing up into his former glory. When she wakes up, there's one thing she's most confused about.
It was Krueger. What? It happened while I was awake. Do you understand what I'm saying?
How could Freddy be terrorizing her dreams if she wasn't even asleep? This was a sly move by the Fedora Fatality framer. Yes, I'm running out of ways to introduce this character. As you can see, we've been going for quite a while now. It was not her dreams that were playing post to Freddy.
Sorry guys, that took me a
dreams
bit.
of her unborn son, who Freddy had found.
Hands
while
are
hiding
super
out
sticky
inside.
now.
She did not know it yet, but Dan had gotten her pregnant. And according to this one doctor later in the movie, an unborn fetus spends up to 70% of its time dreaming. Since it is literally my job to overthink everything, I did do that once again. I looked at a number of articles, which all seem to agree that while we don't know for sure, it is likely that fetuses can dream. And I think that's believable, but my issue isn't about whether they can dream or not, it's the idea that they would be able to dream up scenes of the outside world. I imagine fetus dreams would be more of a series of sounds, temperature shifts, and other sensory changes. However, we do know that
Freddy
Krueger
gives
has
a
the
fuck?
ability to manipulate dreams, so maybe he's able to introduce a visual aspect. Keep that in mind. But once again, this is all just theoretical, as with everything I've talked about in this video related to dream science. Because we have technology that can measure brain activity, but we don't have any tech that can record dreams as the dreamer sees them. And when it comes to remembering our dreams, our memories are very unreliable. Even if you remember your dream,
like this shit smells fire. I wanna actually get
brains that's responsible for storing memory is not fully active.
something to actually smoke dabs
with. It takes
with.
some time to get going after you wake up. That's why it's so easy to forget about your dream if you don't write it down right away. That could be why nightmares are oftentimes more memorable than dreams. Nightmares simulate danger, causing our survival instincts to kick in and wake up the hippocampus. But going off memory is still pretty unreliable for those trying to study dreams. So until there's a way to record dreams, we'll likely never know what a fetus sees while it's dreaming. Which for now is good news if you're Freddy Krueger, who would continue his spree with a set of new victims.
Oh, it's over here. I'm like, wait, where's my bottle opener?
Despite losing some of his power a couple.
I at work tomorrow, and then Monday is gonna be a morning, 9 a.m. to close. But I gotta pee. I'm gonna go pee. I'm gonna empty the pipe. I didn't want to get out. Pizza meats. I'm warming up 3 tenders because I'm kind of hungry. 3 because I have a wrap. I want to put this wrap in the garbage. I don't want to put it back in the thing.
Years earlier, Freddy is still well equipped to dish out chaos in the dreams of Springwood's teenage population. He finally gets to Dan, who's pulled into a dream while driving and crashes his car. Although he survives, he has the bright idea of switching to a motorcycle, which is hijacked by a very Terminator-looking Freddy and sent out of control into oncoming traffic. Next, he goes for members of Alice's new friend group. Greta is a student whose mother is pushing her to become a model, often criticizing her for her diet. Freddy pulls her into a dream during a dinner party and force-feeds her to the point of asphyxiation. Mark is a comic book artist who is suddenly possessed to draw 1428 Elm Street. He's pulled into his own drawing and nearly sucked into the birth canal where Freddy is hiding, but Alice gets there in time to save him. Yvonne, a member of the diving team, also has a close call at practice when the diving board below her breaks apart and the pool transforms into this puddle that transports her to what appears to be the inside of the boiler. She's seized by Freddy, but Alice once again comes to the rescue, impaling Freddy through the mouth with the wrong end of a pool mat. All the while, Alice experiences several dreams featuring a young boy named Jacob, who she eventually comes to realize is a representation of her unborn son when she's pulled into a dream inside her own womb during an ultrasound.
Oh my god, it was right there. I was looking for the top piece of my grinder. I'm like, I looked at that bitch like 60 times. That's the thing. Get there, hell yeah. There's 3 tenders. As I said, no more.
Sees Freddy feeding the souls that he's collected to the baby.
He's taking their souls, their spirits, and making the baby live.
I know we should probably be past the point of questioning when the rules of the Elm Street universe change, but seriously, does the baby dream about the real world or does the baby dream about the womb? Just pick one. The next victim is Mark, who is just kicking back and reading some comic books, but discovers that Freddy has taken over the pages with scenes of his friends being attacked. Once again, he's pulled into the world of the comic. He takes a page from the Dream Warriors by demonstrating a unique dream ability and turns himself into one of his superpowered characters. But Freddy does the same, emerging in this comic book villain-looking costume and referring to himself as Super Freddy. I guess we can give this one points for creativity, but it really feels like Freddy, and by extension, the creators of these movies, kind of forgot to try to be scary at some point, and it certainly doesn't help when Mark loses his 3-dimensional volume and Freddy simply shreds him into scrap paper. However, I am still highly anticipating Paper Freddy in the 1,000-Year Door. With Yvonne and Alice as the 2 remaining survivors, Yvonne goes to look for the lost remains of Amanda Kruger, while Alice goes to sleep to confront Freddy before he can do any more damage to her baby. She finds herself in the corridors of the asylum, where she's chased but manages to lose him, then comes out of nowhere and rams him with this giant spiked baby stroller. I don't know why you would make a baby stroller with these giant metal spikes, but if I was a baby, this would definitely be my stroller. It's so metal. Freddy is tossed down a staircase into the ward for the criminally insane, and the inmates tear him apart limb from limb. But none of this seems to even be real, and he appears in another room, which is basically an amalgamation of the church, the asylum, the diner, and 1428 Elm Street, all jumbled together in a twisted mess of MC Escher physics. Here, Freddy can be seen trying to befriend Jacob. He most likely wants to keep Jacob alive and use him the same way that he tried to use Alex, by having him pull others into his dreams to serve up to Freddy. But when Jacob sees his mom, he realizes something is wrong and runs for it. Once he explains that Freddy is hiding out inside her, Alice is basically able to expel him from her body. And once Yvonne brings Amanda Kruger's ghost to the scene of the fight, she has some guiding words for Jacob.
Jacob, Alice will not triumph. Only you can help her now.
And he does that by basically turning into a mini Kruger and pretending to want to learn from Freddy and take his side, I guess. And then, using the power of the souls that Freddy had been feeding him, screams and hits him with a blast, pulling the baby Freddy out of his body as if it had just been piloting this Freddy Krueger mech suit the entire time. I guess that explains why he was looking so disjointed all summer long. In the aftermath, we see Alice's love for her child as she absorbs him back into her body, in contrast with Amanda, who only shows embarrassment towards her kid as she tries to absorb him. She warns Alice to just take her baby and leave, and it's not long before Freddy's arm slashes out from within her. The last thing we see is Amanda screaming in distress, unable to contain the evil that she had created. We never find out if Alice and Jacob managed to escape Springwood or Freddy's wrath, but we do know that over the next 12 years, he came back. And this time, he was totally uncontested, taking out large swaths of teenagers as well as kids as young as 6 or 7 years old. Some of them turned up in strange places, like the side of a highway, while others just seemed to go missing. One by one, Freddy did what he had never been able to do before. With no Nancy Thompson, Kristen Parker, or Alice Johnson to stop him, he took out the entire population of kids and teenagers in Springwood, with just one kid who managed to escape. The remaining adults in town experienced some kind of mass psychosis, continuing to operate carnivals, schools, and other experiences designed for kids, while seeming not to notice, or at least not to acknowledge, that there are no kids anywhere.
Oh, what beautiful, adorable children! Would you like to come and live with us?
We should burn her alive next. As I mentioned, there was one survivor, and his name was John Doe.
What's in the box?
No, not that John Doe. No, it's not a placeholder name. His parents just hate him. Then again, my parents love me, yet they still named me Zach Morris in the 90s. And speaking of the 90s, A Nightmare on Elm Street skips over them. At the beginning of Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, a title says the events take place 10 years from now. The movie came out in 1991, meaning that Freddy's next activity would be...
I'm gonna tell my boy that shit smells
this
good.
newspaper says April 22 on it, so let's call it April 2001. I guess Freddy was trying to tie up loose ends by killing John so he could enjoy Shrek and Weezer's Green Album in peace the following month. John is taken on a wild dream where he's sucked out of an airplane, experiences a false awakening, and sees Freddy, dressed up as a Wizard of Oz witch, zooming around his house, which is in freefall. I guess Freddy's having some fun with this one to celebrate his last Springwood victory. The house lands at 1427 Elm Street, the very spot where Krueger took the life of Glenn Lance 20 years beforehand. But John survives and hightails out to a Greyhound station where Krueger strikes him with a bus, which he also survives. John is break-heated through a tear in reality back into the waking world, which has literally never been a thing before. When Freddy touches this portal, it closes on him, and he says this.
Now be a good little doggy. And don't fetch.
Like Alice and Jacob before him, John is being kept alive as part of Freddy's plan. This time, he's trying to use him to get to his own biological daughter, Catherine, who is now in her 40s and working as a psychiatrist in a shelter for troubled kids in a neighboring town. Why he needs John to do this is completely unclear, since he is very capable of leaving the boundaries of Springwood, but that is the explanation he gives.
But you let me live.
Only long enough. Bring me back. My daughter.
Regardless, as John and Catherine drive back into town to find answers to the mysteries of their past, 3 other kids from the shelter stow away: Carlos, Tracy, and Spencer. Although these 3 are not from Springwood, that would not save them from the wrath of Freddy Krueger. The 3 runaways end up spending the night at 1428 Elm Street, even though it looks totally different now, where Carlos is the next one to learn why there aren't any kids in Springwood. He dreams that Tracy is calling his name and turns a corner to find himself in some kind of flop house, where his mom threatens to clean out his ears, which may or may not be related to the reason that Carlos wears a hearing aid. The mom reveals herself to be none other than Freddy and sticks a giant cotton swab through his head. Somehow this doesn't kill him, so Freddy then throws him through a brick wall, or at least some wallpaper of a brick wall. How hard would it have been to just make some foam bricks? I don't know. All I know is that Carlos ends up in the boiler room, where Freddy taunts him for not being able to hear without his hearing aid. During this era, Freddy seems to spend less time killing and more time having fun with his victims. We don't know when his last kill was, but maybe he's just enjoying torturing this group because he hasn't had a victim in so long. Also, provided that he's been collecting souls this whole time, we can assume that he's extremely powerful now. So messing around would literally only serve for entertainment purposes.
Give me my hearing back!
So, Freddy does just that. But just like the time he complied with Nancy's request to let her friend go, his compliance comes with unintended side effects. Carlos's hearing aid turns into this little parasitic creature and amplifies the sound way too much, to the point that dropping a pin would drive him insane. Then he threatens to drop a handful of pins, and Carlos screams, begging him to stop, which makes no sense because of the simple fact that you can hear your own voice, and this would be way louder than the pins dropping. Look, it's been a long video. My explanation is that this is just dream logic. After this, Freddy gives him the old nails on the chalkboard routine, and his head explodes. Meanwhile, Spencer, the stoner character of the group, falls asleep on the couch and sees this anti-drug PSA on TV. But Freddy knocks out the host with a frying pan and hypnotizes Spencer into a psychedelic music video. We've seen Freddy use a similar tactic before, with Alex getting sucked into a movie and Mark into a comic book. I know I've had dreams where I start off watching a show, but then gradually find that I'm a character in that show. But strangely, when I tried looking this up to see if it was a common phenomenon, I couldn't find anyone who shared my experience. The closest thing I found was people reporting about fictional characters entering their world, but nothing about the dreamer entering the fictional world. In Spencer's case, he ends up inside of a video game.
What the fuck?
Thank you, Ronnie. As he's manipulated by Freddy in the game world, his body mimics those movements in the real world, leading to him being irradiated through a painting.
I found Spencer!
Oh my god, Spencer, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? Freddy repeatedly stomps on him in the game, then makes him go full cartoon and basically destroys the house. At this point, John and Catherine have shown up, and John wants to enter the dream world to try to save him. There are so many problems with this, so let's talk about them. 1, John doesn't really even know Spencer. 2, the reason that characters have been able to enter other characters' dreams before is because of the special ability passed from Kristen to Alice to Jacob. Nobody here is shown to have that ability. They shouldn't even be able to get into Spencer's dream. 3, John enters the dream world by asking Tracy to knock him unconscious. Being unconscious is not the same as being asleep. You aren't dreaming when you're unconscious. Your brain is basically shut down. But ignoring all of that, they discover Freddy enjoying his video game like a delighted 8-year-old on Christmas morning. So Tracy unplugs his controller. This does very little though, because in this dream, Freddy's glove doubles as a power glove, which if you don't know what that is, it was a special controller used for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1989 that allowed you to control certain games with hand movements. Freddy uses it to shut Tracy and John out and take control of Spencer's body, tossing him down the stairs and into a bottomless pit. Catherine tries to gather Tracy and John and get the hell out of Springwood, but as John is still asleep in the back of the van, he dreams that he is in freefall once more. But Freddy has stowed away in his parachute. He reveals that Catherine is his daughter and that he only kept John alive to get to her. So he cuts him down from the parachute, and also comically wheels in a bed of spikes for him to land on. Because I guess just going splat on the ground wouldn't have been painful enough. Freddy absorbs his soul, and back at the shelter, nobody remembers the 3 boys ever existing, other than Doc, the therapist who works there and specializes in dream therapy.
He didn't just kill Carlos and the others. He erased them.
I mean, he's never done that before, but sure, add it to the list of rules that have changed. Catherine and Tracy are each tormented with dreams of an abusive father, but survive. In Tracy's case, she tries to fight back with martial arts, prompting Freddy to say this.
This is...
Sorry, I just need a minute. Alright, who wrote this line? Michael DeLuca. So after that lady from the carnival, my proposal is that we burn him next. Alright, I gotta get through this. So Doc has his own encounter with Freddy and fights him off with a bat, which is laughable for him at this point.
Dreams. Forever. You're not.
Which has the exact same energy as one of the best lines in screenwriting history from Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
You're alive. Too bad. You will die.
Anyway, the Freddy, I'm losing it. Kruger's making me lose it. The doctor manages to rip off a piece of Freddy's sweater right before his alarm goes off and realizes that he brought the fabric out of the dream with him. This is really important because it gives him the idea to bring Freddy back out into the real world where he may be mortal, something that nobody has attempted to do since Jesse and Lisa fought Freddy in the real world in 1986. So Freddy is vulnerable for the first time in 15 years. They devise a plan and Catherine goes into the dream with the intention of bringing the bastard son of 100 maniacs out with her. This dream takes her to the Temple of Morpheus, where she passes the dream demons and symbolically enters Freddy's brain, where she sees all of his memories and comes to the realization that the Springwood slasher is none other than her Springwood father. And he's not happy about her breaking her promise to keep quiet. Catherine and Freddy scuffle, and she does manage to grab onto him, but he spawns in another room in the real world. At first, he appears to be human again, no longer sporting the burn scars and seemingly able to feel pain. It's never really explained, but I'm guessing this was all just part of the ruse. He sees Catherine. He tries to convince her that all of the horrible things he did weren't his fault because of the abuse he suffered as a kid. He's trying to play to her sympathetic side because she's worked with so many troubled kids and felt pity for them. But what I think he's overlooking is that she was in an abusive household herself as a child, and she doesn't turn out like Freddy. She's a functioning member of society. We talk a lot about the connection between early trauma and, well, villainy here on this channel, but it's important to remember that going through stuff in your youth doesn't guarantee anything. You always have some control in your own destiny. So Catherine doesn't fall for his bit, whacks him with a nail-spiked bat, and then knocks the finger blade glove off his hand. She's a switch hitter, and she's got some serious exit velo. Kruger, who somehow now has his hat back, somehow climbs onto the ceiling. Does he now have the ability to manipulate things and use his dream powers in the real world? I have a theory about that, which we'll get to. Freddy goes in for the kill, bragging that he didn't need the glove to kill her mother. She's able to headbutt her way free, then she repeatedly slashes him in the face, with each strike an honor symbol whose life he had taken. You know, for someone who just said that he doesn't need the glove, he sure seems like he wants the glove. The fight and possession of the glove goes back and forth, but in the end, it is Catherine who ends up with it, and he actually encourages her to try it out for size.
It's in your blood.
He seems to think that wearing the glove is going to make her evil or something, but that's not what happened. She stabs him in the stomach, then Tracy tosses her a lit stick of dynamite that they just have, and Catherine lodges it into her. His last word is kids before he blows up, finally killing him in the real world, finally releasing the dream demons within him, and finally putting an end to the curse of Freddy Krueger that plagued Springwood for the better part of 4 decades. But if Freddy had the ability to use his dream abilities in the real world, how could he ever really die? My theory is that he didn't. In fact, I'm not convinced that any of this even happened. We've seen Freddy use his awakening to
Gonna
trick
get
someone
more
into
puns
thinking they've
tomorrow.
woken up, when in fact they're
We're
actually
gonna
still in
grab
the dream.
3.
It happened to Kristen, Alice, and John, so who's to say that it didn't happen again with Catherine? What if this whole sequence where she wakes up and kills Freddy in the real world wasn't in the real world at all? We never see any follow-up on any of these characters, so I have to assume that's what happened. But even if he came out victorious against Catherine, Tracy, and Doc, he still had a problem. As stated early in this video, he uses the fear of children and teens to give him the power to invade dreams. And Springwood officials seem to realize this at some point. It's probably because there are no kids in the entire town, and rumors of Freddy Krueger invading people's dreams stopped popping up. Those who had been around long enough could have just made the connection and figured out how he operates. And at some point, the survival stories of the few who escaped, like Dr. Gordon, Alice, Yvonne, and possibly Catherine, Tracy, and Doc, would have started to sound more believable. So the powers that be who came to believe in Freddy Krueger took steps to ensure that he could never come back through the town again. Anyone who mentioned Krueger's name would get an unfortunate diagnosis and sentenced to treatment at Weston Hill Psychiatric Hospital, where a steady dose of the dream-suppressant medication Hypnocil would be administered. This is the same experimental medication that Nancy used between 1981 and 1987 to stay off of Freddy's radar, and it's likely that Dr. Gordon had something to do with implementing this policy, along with Springwood police. They even went back and scrubbed the public record, removing and redacting anything about Krueger and his victims. Eventually, families forgot about Springwood's curse and started moving into town again, having babies and repopulating the youth. But this new generation didn't know about the horror that plagued the town pre-millennium, so they weren't afraid. There were a few hiccups along the way, like Bob Davis and Mrs. Campbell, but all of the deaths were staged as accidents or suicides by police, and anyone that's spouting off rhetoric about Krueger was shipped off to Weston Hills and cut off from contact with the outside world. As a result, Freddy lost the power to dream crush, and for the first time, found himself stuck on the outside. Before long, Freddy would make a plea with one of his contemporaries. Enter Jason Voorhees. Born in the mid-1900s in Crystal Lake, New Jersey, Jason was nearly drowned by the other kids one year at summer camp. He should have been supervised, but the counselors were off having filthy sex. So just like Freddy, Jason had a disdain for kids and teenagers, and every now and then, he would come back to life and kill some of them. Jason was defeated by his niece, Jessica Kimball, and dragged down into hell, leaving his iconic hockey mask behind. It is then that Freddy re-emerges and grabs the mask, hoping to make a preposition towards the Crystal Lake killer. After 4 years of silence, Freddy had a game plan to get back in action.
We do things around here a certain way for a reason. And that's given us 4 years of peace.
Meaning that it was summer of 2005, when Freddy, most likely using the last reserves of his remaining power, takes the form of Jason's mother, Pamela Voorhees, and instructs him to wake up and go to Elm Street to strike fear into the kids now living there. Jason is immortal and can come back to life as many times as he pleases, and Freddy's plan is to have him kill and spark concerns in the town that Freddy has returned, which would give him back some of his power.
I've been away from my children.
Jason makes the long walk to Springwood, and his first kill is a teenager in the upstairs bedroom at 1428 Elm Street, which is now restored to more or less how it's supposed to look. This prompts some troubling deja vu from 2 senior officers.
Jesus. It's even the same damn house. 1428 Elm.
And that's all it takes to get the old Freddy fear train rolling again. A team named Lori Campbell overhears the officer say Kruger's name, and she becomes the first person to become vulnerable to him once again. In her dream, she meets Freddy's last casualty before the fight, a little girl with empty eye sockets, who cautions her that Freddy will soon be strong enough to come back and suggests that she warns people. This is obviously Freddy, trying to spook her so she can cause hysteria in the real world and make the town afraid of him. That same night, he feels confident enough to make his return and attacks a boy named Blake using a giant shadow version of himself. But the slash goes right through him. Freddy has not yet regained enough of his power to make an impact, so he sits back and lets Jason do his thing. After hearing about the new murders, 2 Weston Hills patients, Will and Mark, escape and end up spreading even more hysteria about Freddy. They think that they're helping prepare people, but in reality, they're adding to Freddy's power. Lori's best friend, Kia, has a nightmare where he appears in a catalog that she's flipping through and slices her nose off. But because he's not back to full strength yet, nothing manifests in the real world. But by that evening, the fear-powered adrenaline that powered him through the 80s and 90s pumps through and surges once again. Freddy is ready to make his comeback, but there's one thing he didn't take into account. Freddy's next attempt comes that night. During a cornfield dance party, he appears to get the girlfriend of Jason's first Springwood victim, taking the form of her recently deceased boyfriend to lure her to asylum. Once inside, she finds herself trapped in Freddy's favorite location, the boiler room. Before killing her, he puts his own twist on a famous quote.
The only thing to fear is fear.
The original quote, "The only thing to fear is fear itself," was said by U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt in his inauguration speech during the Great Depression. The quote was credited with inspiring many Americans to regain faith in themselves and pull through the economic downturn. The last 4 years for Freddy have been like his own personal Great Depression. He hasn't haunted the nightmares of any kids, nor has he reaped any souls. But now he's pulling through, and the teens of Springwood have something to fear. Yeah, Freddy versus Jason. Deeper than you thought. Gib hides in a locker, but just before Freddy gets her, a wound in her chest bursts open on its own, because Jason, operating from the real world, got there first.
Bro.
There's also an interesting parallel going on here. Freddy and Jason's feud begins because Jason moves in on a girl that he wanted to kill first. The main character this time, Lori, is also caught between 2 boys. Tension arises because Charlie had his eyes on her, but her old boyfriend Will re-emerges after escaping Weston Hills, and he had her first. Like I said, Freddy versus Jason, deeper than you thought. Mark, the other Weston Hills escapee, falls asleep at his desk, and with no hypnosil to suppress his dreams, he drifts off to a scene in his bathroom, where Freddy appears in the mirror, then taunts him using the form of his dead brother. He traps Mark in place, using barbed tendrils to tie down his feet.
Oh, I remember this
He's
scene.
willing to keep Mark alive in exchange for sending a message about Freddy's comeback to the waking world. But Mark understands his plan and refuses to help Kruger reach more victims. So Freddy, perhaps realizing that Mark's friends have arrived outside of his window, decides to send the message himself, lighting the boy on fire and tossing him around the room in a manner similar to how he once used Tina Gray to instill fear in that early generation of Elm Street kids. He finishes Mark with a slash to the face and a message burnt into his flesh. Freddy's back. Well, no, that's Mark's back, technically. You just inscribed the messenger. Meanwhile, the Springwood Police Department is already hard at work trying to contain Freddy Krueger based on what they've learned from past cases, but not realizing that Jason Voorhees is also on the loose this time. They quarantine the town, hoping to stop the spread of talk about Freddy. Meanwhile, Lori Campbell and a group of other survivors are the first to realize that Freddy and Jason are basically in a turf war. Lori dozes off as they're discussing their options and has a nightmare where Freddy takes the form of her father and tries to kiss her. Lucky for her, she's woken up by the others just in time and even pulls Freddy's ear out of the dream with her. But Freddy continues to track the group as they head back to Weston Hills. There, a stoner character named Bill gets a little too sleepy, and Freddy uses the opportunity to manipulate him in his dream, making him eat this giant parasite thing, and in the real world, pour all of the hypnosil down the drain. Freddy's deductive reasoning skills here are pretty impressive. I don't believe he can see everything going on in the real world. If he could, then he would have been able to see Nancy's booby traps. But when he saw that Bill was at Weston Hills, he made the connection, figured out their plan, and thwarted it. He also uses this opportunity to get back at Jason, who had shown up to try to steal another one of his kills. Freddy takes over Bill's body and sedates him using a tranquilizer known as Immobitin.
I was trying to
medication in this facility has
itch my ankle with my other foot.
Unfortunately,
I was getting myself a Harley horse.
To chop Bill in half before he can devour the soul. From Freddy's point of view, it's probably a worthwhile sacrifice. He got rid of the hypnosil and pacified his new rival. Earlier, I mentioned how it didn't make sense for a character to dream while knocked out cold, but this is different. It's understood to be possible to dream while sedated, even under anesthesia. So, for the first time, Jason finds himself in the old boiler room. Using the appearance of Mrs. Voorhees, Freddy scolds Jason for not returning back home after killing off a few teens, then reveals himself as Freddy Krueger. And the two icons clash head-to-head for the first time. Being that Freddy can't take damage in the dream world, he's got the home field advantage in this face-off.
Welcome to my
And he also air yeets Jason a bunch of times, which is pretty fun. Freddy loves air yeeting Jason, and really all of their surroundings during this fight. We've never really seen him do this before. It's hard to say if this is a new technique that he's developed, or if he's always been able to do this, and this time he's just keeping his distance, because he knows that Jason poses more of a threat than the average Springwood final player. Whatever the reason may be, the part where he freaking sends Jason across the room by air humping has got to be one of the most underappreciated moments of all time. Like, if you type air humping Freddy into YouTube, the only results you get are Fred Jones and Freddy Fazbear, and for some reason Kermit. But even dropping a water tank on Jason doesn't do him in, which starts to frustrate his nightmarish opponents, but it does lead to him discovering Jason's greatest fear, water. It causes him to revert back to that trembling little boy at Crystal Lake, and Freddy dives deeper into his subconscious. Pun not intended, again, surprisingly. He's taken back to Jason's childhood, the moment the other kids threw him in the lake. Lord enters the dream, hoping to bring Krueger out with her, the idea being that Jason could kill Freddy in the real world and hopefully not come back to Springwood. But before she can save young Jason from a watery grave, Freddy emerges and pulls him under even deeper. Timing is not on his side though, and Jason's tranquilizer wears off, waking him up and banishing him from the nightmare. In a rage, he turns his fury to Laurie, who tries to pull him out of the dream, but thanks to another false awakening, finds herself in her own nightmare, where the truth is revealed, Freddy being the one who after taking her out, he comes up for Laurie, but once again, time is not on his side. And it would probably help if he just killed the victims as soon as he got the chance, instead of just hovering over them and talking to them for 2 minutes, but that's not what he does. The two awake in a flaming cabin in Camp Crystal Lake, with Jason marching towards them in a rage. Being in the real world, Jason poses a real threat to Freddy, and Milwaukee Brewers, anytime they have to play my Cubs, he's also lost his home field advantage. Their epic battle tears the cabin apart, but somehow, Freddy sneaks away from the chaos to try to nab Laurie and her friends before they can get away. Woo! I like to think that he realizes that he's no match for Jason in the real world, and needs their soul power to buff him up to take on his master.
Oh my god.
However, it's not long until Jason finds him, and steals yet another one of his victims. They do get out some more. The fight finds its way to a construction site, where Freddy launches gas tank torpedoes, releases metal stakes, and manages to get them both struck by a runaway storage cart. But Jason is a relentless machine, and Freddy continues to find ways to fight back. It probably
Wait, do I have
could have
8
gone
ball
on forever,
pool?
but in the end, Laurie and her boyfriend
No,
dodge
I
the dock in
don't.
propane and come back with torches, setting the dock ablaze and triggering a massive explosion. Just as he had during his first trip through the real world, Freddy is torched by Elm Street residents, but this time it's only briefly. He falls into the lake, extinguishing the flames, and shortly after comes for the two surviving teens with Jason's machete. But with the last of his energy, Jason stabs him through the back with his own finger-bladed arm, giving Laurie the opportunity to avenge her fallen mother and friends with one clean, decapitating slice. At long last, Nancy Thompson's original goal of killing Freddy in the real world has been achieved. But is this truly the end of Freddy Krueger? This would suggest no, as the last thing we see is Jason emerging from the lake with the dismembered Freddy head in hand. But he seems to have the same unrelenting ability to survive in this world as he did in the nightmarescape of his many victims. Remember to subscribe to CZ's World for videos every week, ring the death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive. Food! I want food! So I finished recording the Freddy video. I think it'll be pretty good. There are definitely parts that were less fun to talk about than others. The fun part is analyzing the characters. Some of those later sequels, not a whole lot of substance to talk about, but honestly, pretty hard to go through. Freddy vs. Jason is surprisingly deep, right? I don't know. The one problem that I kept running into was the rules are constantly changing from movie to movie. It does kind of feel like something's missing.
Running a first on a first. The USGS is reporting a magnitude 4.2 earthquake off the coast of Malibu, California.
think I figured out why it's changed so much in the Elm Street franchise. At first, I was bothered by this, but I've come to realize the answer is right there. It's because A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Revenge, Dream Warriors, The Dream Master, The Dream Child, Freddy's Dead, and Freddy's Dead are simply movies within a franchise. They're just movies made to entertain characters in a movie. They weren't made to be inspected that close. It's not that different from when I inspect newspaper headlines about Freddy's kidnappings, but the articles themselves talk about baseball scores and Marine Corps movements. The real world in the franchise is actually the world where actors like Heather Langenkamp and Robert Englund star in A Nightmare on Elm Street in Hollywood. Mrs. Langenkamp's son even takes a shot at the increasingly unbelievable logic seen in some of the Elm Street sequels.
Can you come with me, my dreams? I think that only happens in movies.
In terms of the timeline, this takes place in the modern day of when New Nightmare came out, which is 1994, after Freddy's death, but before Freddy vs. Jason.
So, Heather, approaching the 10th anniversary. This whole Nightmare on Elm Street thing.
The horror is set in motion when Wes Craven, the director of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, starts developing an idea for a revival of the franchise. He isn't fully in control of the script, claiming that he just waits for scary dreams to come to him and then he writes them down. He describes the nightmare entity so ancient that it's existed in many different forms and cultures. The only ones that can capture it are storytellers. It was captured for the last decade in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, but when the series ended, it was set free.
He's sort of gotten used to being Freddy now, and he likes that time and space, so out of films into our reality.
After he begins writing, Heather begins receiving ominous phone calls from the stalker with the Freddy Krueger voice, repeating the lines of the in-universe nursery rhyme, which weighs heavily on her and freaks out her son, Dylan. She also receives a series of troubling letters during her birthday. One day, she has a dream that the animatronic Freddy glove used in a New Nightmare on Elm Street movie seems to come to life on its own and massacres the crew members on set before coming for her son. At first, she believes the nightmare was triggered by an earthquake, but would soon come to suspect a much darker explanation. During one talk show interview, the host surprises Heather with an appearance of Robert Englund, complete with the Freddy makeup and costume. She plays along, but she's clearly pretty uncomfortable because of what she's going through in her personal life. She comes home to discover Dylan having an episode, and when she rushes into his room, he says this. Which is the final line from the Freddy Krueger nursery rhyme, a movie that she had forbidden him from watching. She also discovers a four-fingered slash through one of his toys, causing her to start to suspect Freddy Krueger may be crossing over into the real world. Later that night, Dylan expresses a belief that Rex keeps away the media. She insists that there's nothing under his bed, but it's hard to tell if she's trying to convince him or trying to convince herself. This is also a reversal of the circumstances from her role as Nancy Thompson in Nightmare on Elm Street. In that movie, she believed in Freddy, but had a hard time getting any support from any parents or authority figures. Now, she's in the position of the parent, grappling with whether to believe her own kid at risk of giving into hysteria. After hearing about Dylan's episode, his father, Chase, a special effects artist doing pre-production for the new Nightmare movie, attempts to rush home from the location, but ends up passing out during a long drive. Or at least getting drowsy enough to enter that state of hypnagogic hallucination, the same way that Nancy did as her body started to shut down near the end of the Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy's arm emerges from Chase's seat and stabs him in the chest, sending him barreling into a wall. Apparently they didn't show him the same documentary that my class was shown in film school to warn against the dangers of sleep deprivation. Say what you want about it, but that song was so annoying that it stuck, and nobody ever drove home drowsy. As it often goes in the movies, Chase's injuries are attributed to damage caused by the vehicle, as it would be ridiculous to suspect a supernatural movie character. During the funeral, an earthquake shakes her husband's coffin loose, and she hits her head in commotion. This causes her to have a short dream where Dylan disappears, and she finds him in the burial plot, being dragged to hell by Freddy Krueger. Again, it probably isn't possible to dream while you're knocked unconscious, but maybe this time the dream occurred as she was coming back too, because the head trauma doesn't look as serious. That night, Dylan seems to be in a trance, standing in front of the TV, watching A Nightmare on Elm Street. It appears that he's sleepwalking, and most likely in the midst of a nightmare, based on his reaction when his mom wakes him up. When asked where he heard the Freddy nursery rhyme, he claims that he heard it from under his bed. The devil comparison that I made through the first 4 Elm Street films that kind of faded away after that is back in a very bold way when it comes to this version of Freddy. Freddy seems to take hold of Dylan again the next day at the playground. And can I just say, why is climbing on this thing even an option? Who designed this?
Exactly.
Dylan almost seems to be mimicking what happened to Philip Anderson from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, the only Elm Street film outside of the original that Heather Langenkamp was in. It's almost as if Freddy is trying to use her past memories against her. As they say, the devil's in the details. Nancy and her co-star John Saxon are able to run over and catch the boy before he falls to the same fate that Philip did, but he still seems to be entranced afterwards. With the devil,
Dog.
as Heather would find out that night, when Freddy's
This
plot
is like
comes to
dead
be
skin.
in A Nightmare on Elm Street, this time he really is crossing over into her own reality. A loud crash from downstairs wakes her up, but evidence of his intrusion is there, just as it was in Tina Gray's pajamas a decade prior. Upon investigating the noise downstairs, she finds her son has now fashioned his own Freddy Krueger glove using kitchen knives, and he attacks her with it. Thankfully for her, this was also a dream. The longer Heather stays idle, the closer Freddy gets to the real world. During one of his mysterious phone calls, his tongue comes through the phone just like a Nightmare 1. Heather visits Wes Craven, and he tells her that she's a gatekeeper, the only person who can prevent Freddy from crossing over. The only way she can do this is by being in the movie. Only a storyteller can capture his essence. He may be telling the truth, but the method for stopping Freddy falls suspiciously in line with his motives as a film director. It would be like if the brands I work with told me that the only way to save my family is to promote their audiobook service or meal delivery kits. Things get even more real when Freddy takes the lives of 2 more special effects artists who'd been prepping for the movie, and the animatronic Freddy glove goes missing. Eventually, Heather's fears are confirmed. After being rocked by another big earthquake, she investigates a noise in her closet.
Miss me.
Heather's attempted escape from Freddy Krueger results in her being wrestled onto her bed. More and more, her scenes as Nancy Thompson in the original movie are coming true. Freddy even refers to her as Nancy at one point. Another earthquake shakes her awake, but she isn't unscathed. She tries to stay with her son as long as possible at the hospital, but grows exhausted, leading to increasing dreams and hallucinations of Freddy. Because of this, he continually gets closer to crossing over into the real world. A Nightmare on Elm Street played with the idea of blurring the line between dream and reality. As Nancy became more sleep-deprived, she started to experience her nightmare in the real world. This mirrored her troubling home situation, where her mother's alcohol abuse blurred her own lines of reality in a constant limbo between sobriety and drunkenness. Now Heather is grown up, and she's experiencing a new form of blurred reality, losing sight of the line between fiction and the real world. She increasingly starts to see scenes that she's acted in taking hold in her own life, like when she goes to find where Dylan is being treated.
Screw your past. Where's your past? Screw your
Dylan is moved to a room for special care and sedated. Although his babysitter tries to keep him awake, he becomes drowsy enough to see Freddy Krueger appear behind her and gore her in the back. She's lifted into the air, much like Tina was in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Dylan witnesses the horrific murder of his babysitter. Freddy comes for him, but Dylan is also a sleepwalker, and he's determined to escape. The chase takes him across a busy freeway, where a deity like Freddy of the Skies nearly turns him into roadkill. Then, an entire Krueger army chases him back home. His mother is relieved to finally catch up with him, but they're also visited by a concerned friend, John Saxon, who played Nancy Thompson's dad in the movie. He too starts calling her Nancy, seemingly having turned into his character from the film. Heather refuses to play along at first, but she continues to see more and more of the movie coming true before her eyes, until eventually she just caves in and decides to play Nancy Thompson.
I love you too.
And in any other scenario, calling your coworker daddy while off the job might raise a few eyebrows even if you are a professional actor. But this represents Heather playing the character, which is what Wes Craven told her she would need to do to stop Freddy.
I think the only way to stop him is to make another movie. So I'm going to stay by this computer and keep writing until I finish the script.
We can assume that this is where he finally reaches and kidnaps the boy, just as he had in the movies, bringing him to his lair with plans to harvest his soul. Because when Heather returns to the house, which is now transformed into 1428 Elm Street, Dylan is nowhere to be found. Only a trail of sleeping pills that he refused to take at the hospital. She realizes what she must do, follow Nancy's footsteps by going into the dream to face Krueger. She slides into the world of dreams, where she's spit out of a giant underworldly Freddy Krueger shrine that drops her into a deep pit. She lands in a pool surrounded by Doric columns, where there are only 2 sources of light, the heavenly luminescence shining down from above, and the warm glow of the hellish fires that surround this safe zone.
Guys, I'm literally about like on dream
somewhere you would expect an ancient tale of gods and demons to unfold. Since Freddy's emergence, Dylan has been trying to reach God to protect him from the devil that is masquerading as Freddy Krueger.
Why does God have to be bad things?
But when no God came to his rescue, Heather had to take things into her own hands and realize that divine role. Freddy stalks her from just beyond her field of vision, just as Nancy had in the boiler room in Elm Street. Her search for Dylan brings her to this sort of Greek temple in the underworld, where she discovers friezes of terrifying-looking entities, perhaps other forms that the Dream Demon has taken over the years. At one point, she nearly backs into a giant stone bowl with the word Lethe on it, referring to Lethe, one of the 5 rivers of the underworld in Greek mythology. It was believed that when souls died and entered the underworld, they would drink from the waters of the river Lethe to forget their earthly lives and memory. movies. This also ties in with the idea of Heather leaving her earthly life behind to take on the role of a god and find and rescue her son from Freddy Krueger. Dylan finds her, but then so does Freddy. He throws her into a pot which shatters, and she's left lying in a shallow pool of snakes, which he tries to force her head into. The snakes are also a biblical reference. The original Nightmare on Elm Street features many examples of characters trying to turn to Christianity to save them, but to no avail. Christianity holds this concept of the original sin, where Adam and Eve were instructed not to eat the forbidden fruits, but Eve was tempted by a serpent, who is often interpreted as a representation of the devil. The idea is to teach that sin is an inherently human trait, so Freddy pushing her face down into the serpents is meant to make her feel less divine and more human. But Heather uses his attack against him, grabbing one of the snakes by its head and forcing it into his eye.
He's also going to cover the
gatekeeper. She's not going to be the one to sin, but she'll gladly wait for Freddy to make a mistake. She also delivers a pretty solid punch to the face and beats him with a torch. Torches are another symbolic artifact when it comes to Greek mythology, often seen as a connection between the mortal world and the gods. For example, Prometheus was the god of fire who stole fire from the gods of Olympus and gifted it to humanity. One tradition that still exists today is the passing of the torch at competitions such as the Olympics, which symbolizes the continuity of tradition and the connection between the athletes and the gods, as the Olympics were considered a sacred event by the Greeks. But there's also a double meaning here, because Freddy Krueger was burned alive by the Elm Street parents. Some might say torched in the world of the movies. But even this doesn't prevent him from getting the upper hand and pinning Heather to a stone tablet with the word lust written on it. A surefire callback to the intimate subtext present between Krueger and Nancy on the screen. It's part of a greater display of the 7 deadly sins, again calling back to the idea of conflating humanity with sin. Lucky for her, Dylan comes to the rescue, stabbing Freddy in the leg before scampering away. He tosses Heather aside and chases Dylan to this furnace. She's knocked out momentarily, but eventually runs to the sounds of her child's distress, where she's slowed down by this ground slop on the stairs, just like what Nancy found herself stuck in on the stairs of the Elm Street house. Freddy uses his extended arms to reach and grab the board. Then, in a move that we've never seen in the movies, stretches his mouth open to an impossible size with the intention of devouring him whole. A new twist on the concept of consuming his victim's soul. But with half of Dylan's head engulfed in Freddy's gaping mouth, Heather arrives and stabs her rival in the back, allowing Dylan to get loose as Freddy writhes in pain. This time, Dylan is the one to face imagery of the snake. Meanwhile, his mother remains vicious with the knife. She can be seen pulling the blade right out of Freddy's crotch, something that no amount of pain tolerance can prepare you for, and perhaps the long time coming revenge for the years of child abuse and molestation, in the movies at least. Even after this, Freddy still manages to recuperate one more time, shooting out his tongue which wraps around her head, the fifth and final example in the history of Freddy Krueger's tongue. It is again Dylan who comes to the rescue, pinning down the devil's tongue with a knife, allowing the two of them to team up and push him into the fire once and for all. As they crank up the flames with this lever, we can see the result of Dylan's attack on Krueger's tongue. It gives him a forked tongue, a trait shared with many serpents, and of course another attribute commonly associated with the devil. The devil that took the form of Freddy Krueger to come into our world would end up sharing the same fate as the character he so closely identified with. And in his final moments, we can see him transform into his true demonic form. But we've seen Freddy killed so many times in the dream world of movies, only for him to come back and back and back. Who's to say that the same won't happen with the true Dream Demon, the one rooted in reality? I think there's a clue about his future when Heather and Dylan reawaken to the real world, and Heather finds the finished script to the movie that Wes Craven had been writing.
Thanks for having the guts to play Nancy one last time. At last, Freddy's back where he belongs. Regards, Wes.
Going off the lore that Wes had provided earlier, which has proven to be accurate, capturing Freddy in a story will neutralize him for some time.
Every so often they imagine a story good enough to sort of catch its essence, and then, for a while it's held prisoner in this. However it happens, when the story dies, the evil is set free.
And now, with no new Nightmare on Elm Street for nearly 30 years...
Are you sure about that?
We don't talk about that. I think it's only a matter of time before evil is set free once more. In the original iteration of Freddy Krueger, it was the fear of the children that kept him alive.
Nope.
And in our world, not the new Nightmare world, but in our real world. The legacy of these films has kept the fear of Freddy alive for several generations. And I can only imagine that he'll continue to haunt the nightmares.
Is it raining? Yeah, I think so. Well, let me check. So I get so into CZ's World's videos that I forget to do shit.
Remember to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week. Ring the death bell for all notifications, and I will see
Here's where I got
you
to learn everything. Oh, I even watched his 2-hour 10-minute 48 video about American Psycho. I regret every minute of that. Could have been doing other shit, like jerking off. Being honest. And my mom said I had to look through my Christmas list. Oh, fuck. I don't know why. No, I'm seeing shit. Where's my fucking cats being extra sneaky? Gotta go with my cats. Yeah, we had dead ass just froze for like 10 minutes. Just lose that boozy, I wanna fuck you. Lose it, boozy. You know. Now arriving Friday. Why does it say now arriving when it annoying. Okay. 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 Boozy, boozy, I wanna eat your ass. What about it, guys? Wanna eat my ass? Huh. This is raining. Lose it. Who's it? I don't want to fuck. What? I want to what? Ah, I'm fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's raining. Lose it, booze it. I don't wanna fuck. I don't wanna fuck. We're fucking good. Lose it, booze it. I don't wanna fuck. I don't wanna fuck. So fucking what? Lose it, booze it. I don't wanna lose it. I'm gonna get this myself, so. Now I can buy the entire volume 1 set. Okay, I think first I'm gonna get a new mic. So let me add that to cart. fuck it, let me add this to cart as well. I wanna lose it, booze it up my boots. Wow! I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. Lose it, who's it? I want fuck so fucking good. Yeah, I need a new laptop, but that'll be a bit. Because I'm getting my PS5 first. Because I don't need no good capture card with the PS4 or the PS5. But I'm gonna get a new capture card though, but a laptop's no longer that important. The reason I want to get a new capture card is because for the game, horror games and shit, I want to do that through a capture card. Like, I'm getting these myself, so I'm acting like you guys see what I'm doing. You can't. I'm also gonna get this myself. Lose it, booze it. I wanna fuck. I think I have a king. No, hold on. What do I have? Queen. Queen size bed sheets. What the fuck's the lighter at, dog? I swear I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm gonna go bed around like 6. No, I'm kidding. Around like 2, I mean. And none of these look good. Let me look for a comforter set. I wanna lose it, booze it up my. Oh yeah, I hear it now. Whew. Yeah. This some good shit. But I swear to God, if this is not dabs, then this is something else. I may punch him. Nah, but I'm kidding. It's dabs. I hope. Whew. That was a cough, young man. Was it? Was it really a cough? Or are you just ashamed to have me as a son? Answer me. I want to kneel. The fucked up thing with me is I don't make my bed. So it's like, it doesn't matter what comforter set I have. Like, I barely make my bed. I leave it. Cause your boy stole the Xbox. Not so to give away. My bad. This combined with the beer, this is good tonight. Woo. All I got. God damn. I don't know what the fuck that shit is. And I'm hungry. My fat ass. I acknowledge that I am a fat ass. But here's the thing. I like to be happy. So, I eat the food I like. But I keep it at, you know, around the same, you know, weight. So if I notice I'm getting too over the, you know, steady weight I like to keep, I go on a diet and shit. No, fuck it. We're watching that.
Today we're throwing the 99 overall himself, Chris Danger, into current.
Large money is all
we were gonna throw it somewhere else, but things happen. Speedy recovery to my boy Chuck, and now I'm sad again. But as consolation prize, he's going to give it a contract. But is Danger headed to Raw with World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins and Intercontinental Champion Gunther, or SmackDown with Universal Champion Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio? Only one way to find out, and that is to spin the wheel. And Danger's going to Monday Night Raw, baby. Okay, so now that we know where we're going, here are the objectives. Number one.
No, I got these wild berry toastums. I haven't tried them.
Number two, become
I was gonna check out these. No, I just stocked this the other day.
WrestleMania. And if we don't complete at least two of those objectives, Chris Danger
expires in May.
Monday Night Raw to an astounding ovation, unlike anything ever heard in the
Like, they
history of
sound
wrestling. Chris
good.
Danger made
Wild
his
berry,
first
yes
target
please.
The 99 overall vowed to dethrone the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, the unstoppable Gunther. Our round begins at WrestleMania, where Chris Danger better be on this damn card. Oh, Gunther's in a tag match. Damn it. All right, so I won't be getting an Intercontinental title shot, but I will be getting a Falls Count Anywhere match against Dom Dom. But in Chris Danger's WrestleMania debut, he defeats.
Oh my god, this game looks horrible.
In a Falls Count Anywhere match, which will assure.
Man, I don't know how he's recording it, but it looks so bad.
The Intercontinental title. That's gonna go ahead and take us right to WrestleMania. Flash with what's on the poster, okay? Charlotte gets a women's championship opportunity. Never would have seen it coming, and I'm not on the show. Sick. Now, we are currently the #1 contender for the Intercontinental Championship. He just don't want to defend it, obviously. But that's alright, because we're headed to the next pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell's in June. Let's see what we got on the Hell in a Cell card. Is your boy teaming with Ricochet against a team that's not together anymore? Is Gunther injured? Are you out?
I don't know what the fuck I am.
Well, I guess Danger and Ricochet just gotta beat these two till they break up again. Oh no, Sammy! Danger and Ricochet though an exciting pairing, unable to pick up a victory over Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa. We're already 3 months in, no objectives completed. Danger's job is in peril. What is this? Oh, is this a Money in the Bank match? Ooh, Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Paul Cruz, Chris Danger, Sami Zayn, Johnny Gargano, Ricochet. 8-man Money in the Bank ladder match. It all comes down to this. This is the biggest opportunity in Danger's career so far. Money in the Bank ladder match against some of the best wrestlers on the roster. And in the end, oh, Danger won it! Danger becomes Mr. Money in the Bank. All right, things finally starting to look up here. Let's go. Heading from Money in the Bank to the biggest show of the summer, SummerSlam. There is a gnat flying around here. Oh my God. Let's check out this SummerSlam card where I team with Dom against the New Day because of course I do. But Cody gets an Intercontinental title match. All right, but Danger and the Dom,
Danger and Doofus
are somehow able to team together and defeat the New Day. The old can they coexist? And it turns out they can. On to Clash at the Castle, which is allegedly the September pay-per-view. I don't know anymore. Also, I should have mentioned this. I'm not allowed to change any matches at all. So if I can't give myself an Intercontinental title match, I can't give myself a world title match. So I'm just kind of hoping that the damn AI throws me a bone here. Maybe. Seth and Dom in the main event for nothing. And The Miz is apparently World Heavyweight Champion now. What timeline are we in? So Chris Danger, even though I've been #1 contender for 4 months, I will be removing myself from the Intercontinental Championship rankings. And instead, I will randomly add myself somewhere here. All right, put me in #2. Okay, put me in #2 in the world title division. Okay, to October, that's where we are now. Love the fall time. It's great. Favorite time of year. Extreme Rules. I don't think that's what Extreme Rules is, though. What year did they base the pay-per-view format off of in this game? Whatever. Roman and Shinsuke, blah, blah, blah. Gunther's here, and I'm fighting Cody Rhodes. All right. Extreme Rules, Chris Danger, and Cody Rhodes. You're talking about the American Nightmare versus the
I'm gonna have the game soon.
A competitive contest that kept fans on the edges of their seats. And at the end of the day, the winner was Chris Danger, taking out Cody Rhodes with that taste of danger. And it's over for the roller coaster. November, please remember that I should be Mr. Money in the Bank still. If you could cash in at some point here, bro, that'd be great. Oh, I forgot, in this game, it doesn't just give you the Money in the Bank. If you win the Money in the Bank, you have to do it yourself. You have to do it yourself. Indy Hartwell, by the way, is the Women's World Champion. Miz is the World Heavyweight Champion. And Alpha Academy, the WWE Raw Tag Team Champions. The Intercontinental Championship is the only one that hasn't changed hands. Son of a bitch. All right, Survivor Series.
Going on
600 days. I'm not even on the show. Why would you put Mr. Money in the Bank, Mr. Grant? Nope. Wait, there's no December pay-per-view? Well, there is now. WWE, what kind of custom shows I got here? WWE, DPW, KO and Seth, Cena. I should have stayed there. I should have stayed there. I should have absolutely. Falls count anywhere again with the damn Cody matches. Cody and Danger, and Danger wins again. All right? Are we done here, Cody? Have I beaten you enough? You let me know. Get back. I have not checked the news as of late. Let's see if anything noteworthy has gone down involving Chris Danger. No, I'm not seeing. Oh, what's this? Close out with a brutal opponent to speak. What? Who is that got to do with me? To WWE Day 1. Is there anything going on here with Danger? Is there anything at all? Just take a look. Oh my God. Not even a gimmick match this time. Just a regular ass match of Day 1. And I won again. Cody, are we good here? I 3-0'd you, bro. Let it go. You know, I just felt checking the Raw real quick. I felt like checking it. And now me and Ludwig Kaiser are teaming together. Oh, and apparently Mr. Money because reasons. I guess we'll go with Danger failed, which is the worst story ever. Oh my God! Gunther for the title. This little bastard. Judgment
What?
Day with all the damn gold here again. Tag titles again. Indy's still the women's champion. And Shinsuke Nakamura now the world heavyweight champion. We got
I
about
gotta
3
ask him
shows
that.
left. One of them happening to be the Royal Rumble. I can't wait to see what's on this card. You got Cena going after
No, you guys can tell him, Reggie. What the fuck?
Okay, no. Explain to me how I beat Cody Rhodes 6 times and he gets a world title shot. Explain that to me. Someone tell me why. Oh my god. And I'm taking one of it. No.
He doesn't wanna leave your
All the trouble I've
side.
seen. And I better at least be in the Rumble or something. Oh, because and Chris Danger defeated the Royal Rumble has been won by Seth freaking Rollins, giving him a championship match in the main event of WrestleMania. Oh boy. What do I have to do with this? Despite Aaliyah's bold declaration to make an example out of her rival with a ladder attack, Io Sky scored an upset win and made her opponent eat her own words. Io Sky instead delivered a ladder attack of her own to Aaliyah, knocking her rival down to wrong. Why am I here? Really getting down to the wire here. Elimination Chamber, February pay-per-view. That means there is only one. I'm on the poster. Only took you almost a damn year. You better give me something good for being on the poster. I swear on all that is holy. John Cena and Cody. I'm not in a race tag match. Oh my god, please give me one. Is this for the title? 6-man Elimination Chamber. Danger, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Shinsuke, Dom, and Kevin Owens. I think that's for the world title. Shinsuke is the world champion. Holy balls. It should be a winner take all. Dom put his damn Intercontinental title online. Shinsuke put his world title online. I could put my briefcase online. I don't think I got it anymore though. Elimination Chamber. 6 of the biggest superstars in WWE today. With the biggest prize in the game. The World Heavyweight Championship at stake. And once all the pods were open, and the dust settled, and the smoke cleared, the World Heavyweight Champion is... Drew friggin' McIntyre! Hardly know her. No. Oh, that's really unfortunate. Oh boy. Okay, so that wait, there's no March pay-per-view. We're adding one. Presenting WWE Crown Jewel. I heard Danger's getting a big payday for this. 4-way tornado tag. Get the hell out of my face. You think I'm going all the way over there for a 4-way tornado tag? You're out of your mind. Oh, but Cena gets Intercontinental title shot. Oh, I'm done. Cena. Miz gets another damn shot. The Miz. Whoop-de friggin' do. Did I win out here in the Saudi? I think, wait, no. 8-man, 4.
I was trying to come
Is
for
it 4
boogie.
separate teams or is it 2 separate teams of 4? Or 4 separate teams of 2? I'm just gonna assume me and Ricochet and Sami Zayn and Jey Uso were all on the same team and we won. But I don't think that's whatever. Well, here comes the pain. WrestleMania is upon us. Our final PLE of the year, our final show of the year, and Danger's last chance. So not only does Chris Danger have to win the World Heavyweight Championship tonight, but it has to be the main event of the show. Lord be your strength. To WrestleMania, we go! Oh my god! Not only do I not get a world title shot, but the world title is in the opening match against The Miz! For the love of God, please, I'm gonna go as slowly as I can. Let me be the main event of WrestleMania so that I can at least notch one objective off the list here. We got, oh my god. This has been the most preposterous, egregious year of Universe Mode I've ever witnessed. Okay, so what's that? A Big E? Okay. Oh, no, it's a cool match. Okay, I'm okay with that. That's actually really cool. Oh, in the main event, you get Shinsuke going twice, but you can't put him in the main event, and you can't put him against the number 1 contender, maybe, probably, allegedly, for the... I'm not happy. Well, I hope Danger enjoys his last match in WWE against Drew McIntyre, where he wins. Usually if you're on your way out, you get fired or whatever, you go out on your back. We ain't doing that. Well, unfortunately, that means that the newest member of the Monday Night Raw roster, the 99 overall Chris Danger, is now fire. Best of luck in your future endeavors. Like, you probably have better
Should have
luck
been like,
anywhere else.
best
First, I think
of
we gotta run
luck
that
in your
back on
future
SmackDown.
endeavors,
I feel
kid.
like Raw maybe wasn't the best, but
CM Punk. CM Punk. He's coming back, y'all. I guarantee you, brother. Trying to think about what to watch. WWE the full. Oh my god. This match sucks. I don't get why it's on here. This match wasn't that bad.
In a cell match. And it's for the Raw Women's Championship. Introducing first the challenger from the Queen City, Charlotte.
Sorry, this was in 2015 with that back and forth
From
shit.
Boston, Massachusetts, she is the Raw Women's Champion, Sasha Banks.
Wait, no. 2015, I think. I can't remember when this happened.
And the trash talking's begun.
It was before WrestleMania. No. After WrestleMania 31, I think.
Both these women have held that
Before
championship
WrestleMania 32.
two different occasions. Sasha took the title from Charlotte on Raw a number of weeks ago in Los Angeles, and now it'll start to sink in for both Charlotte and Sasha Banks. The 20-foot-high, 5-ton structure slowly
No, actually, I don't think Charlotte gives a shit.
lowered to the floor. I can't help but think of the cryptic words of General Manager Mick Foley during the contract signing between these two ladies, where he said, "Listen, this cell has no soul. This cell has no conscience. I want you to believe in your hearts that you are prepared for how this will impact your career."
You can see the emotion on both of these women's faces. How much this opportunity means to them. I think it's all
Charlotte blindsiding Sasha Banks. Charlotte blindsiding a Bosch, and this match hasn't even started yet. Cell's not even down.
Seemed like it crushed by the cell.
Stop the cell on its way down. The officials out there. Charlotte with a sneak attack on Sasha. The match isn't even underway.
This goes to show you guys how badly the Queen wants to reclaim her throne.
We've seen this before. We know that Charlotte will have no hesitation in trying to injure Sasha Banks. Sasha, as she sends Charlotte out of the WWE Universe.
She definitely wasn't worth the money she wanted. She wanted like fucking as much as John Cena or Roman Reigns. Definitely wasn't fucking worthy of that type of money. But don't get me wrong, she was like good on the mic. No, she was okay on the mic, but she was definitely like, I was a fan of her in ring, but she wasn't worth Roman Reigns money. That's the type of pay she wanted. I'm like, you ain't no Lito, you ain't no Trish Stratus.
That's the last thing on their mind right now. Sasha, you're gonna send Charlotte a message. You wanna mess with me, you don't mess with the boss.
You don't fucking what? The fuck was I gonna say? Michael Cole, you confused me.
Charlotte, get out from there. Sasha trying to prevent it. Oh, they're still climbing, and now Sasha is too. Look at Sasha. Charlie teetering. Sasha trying to make it down off the cell. Oh my goodness, Charlotte's got Sasha.
Damn.
The champion is in deep trouble. The Pirates put this match Sasha's body is absolutely mangled. It's a shame.
Never back down, never. Back down, never what? It's a 5-on-2 for Judgment Day. It's a 5-on-2 for Judgment Day. I don't shut up like you're up, and when I look at you, I throw up. You're a fun idiot. I don't shut up like do I have a best friend? Hell yeah. Do I love my best friend? Hell yeah. But do they never answer the goddamn phone? Yeah. No one got it.
I'm fucking dead.
Why do you think the earth is flat? You want to talk about the earth flat? From a human viewpoint, I think the earth is flat. No, I think this is flat. I'm just saying there's some stuff. He's a flat earth. And he wants to say that I think slowly. Okay. The earth is a sphere. Okay.
Axis.
What?
Earth's on an axis.
Okay. Good. I'm not a flat earth.
Well, Flaggers is really getting what he deserves.
What the fuck?
If you're taking a trip with your friends,
You need a new women's champion. Let's keep in mind that the match never officially started. It wasn't like the match started and then this happened and the champion would continue. The match never started. It doesn't matter if you're not here to be the women's champion, you're going to be replaced. Who better than Charlotte? Guys, the official just waved off the announcement by JoJo. Oh, and Sasha Banks is on the boss is on the arrested. Sasha can barely stand. You can't compete. And Charlotte wants the title, but she's not going to get it without earning it. I think as soon as Sasha heard that announcement, she just made an emotion. She couldn't let it go down. And Sasha told the official, ring the bell. And here we go.
The fuck? This song is fire.
Charlotte weathered that early emotional storm by Sasha. Now the official again checking on the champion. Reevaluate. Pick apart the champion anyway.
The fuck?
Covered by Charlotte. Look for the leg here and a kick out. They should just stand in the cell. And now Charlotte knees to the back. The challenger. Watch this. A monkey flip. Amazingly powerful way to launch the box right on. And watch this.
I forgot about that. Yo, I'm out of this world right now, guys. Yeah, I'm just gonna go bed around like 2, 3 o'clock. 6 to 5 hours of sleep will be enough. Just want to wake up kind of early tomorrow. Okay, that's me and not today.
I just checked your spray valve tailpiece.
Do you want to clean my pipes?
You want me to clean your pipes?
Maybe.
Okay. Let me know if you do.
I bet I can handle a pretty big pipe.
You like a 2? I don't know. This was built to be a 1.5. That's what you currently have. I can install it too, but I have to rip everything out. It's going to cost you more.
Well, maybe if I can figure out another form of payment.
You mean like a check? Yeah, that's fine.
Like maybe if you take care of my pipes, I can take care of your pipes.
Just gonna need a new spray valve. Just gonna need a new spray valve.
The fuck is this? Bruh.
9 fucking things that will happen on Prime Videos soon.
Okay, you're gonna tell me the worst things to say right after.
Okay.
Okay.
And again, maybe I didn't forget your name. I just scream out because that happens. Never read the book. Because I'm telling you, your reminds me so much of Waldo. You gotta pick it up your local library. Now, and I'm sorry, screaming feminism as I finished. I'm not sure what that meant either. Alright, you're gonna compare notes to my dad and get back to you. No, I'm not weird. Just because I told you this. Urban doesn't mean that it's a fetish. Like, be open-minded. No, I didn't know we were doing Vampire Diaries roleplay. No, you just started your sentence.
Okay, you're gonna tell me the worst things to say right after.
You can't counter-program what all elite wrestling is doing.
You sure about that? Are you sure about that?
You can't counter-program what all elite wrestling is doing.
You sure about Mike! Get the towels!
I'm probably gonna save the rest for tomorrow. Yeah. For tomorrow after I get home. Sorry, I have. So I don't need a. Make another one. Anytime soon.
I've got a feeling today Kingsford and I are helping serve up serious flavor at any occasion. Put a nice sear on it. Look at that.
It looks good.
This is Kingsford Barbecue Rescue. I've got a feeling today Kingsford and I are helping serve up serious flavor at any occasion. Put a nice sear on it. Look at that. This is Kingsford Barbecue Rescue. I've got a feeling today Kingsford and I are helping serve up serious flavor at any occasion. Put a nice.
Let's see here.
Baseball slide. Taylor bounces off the sound. Toss it. Penny. Charlotte. As much punishment as just put it on Charlotte did Sasha. Sasha too, with an already damaged lower back of hers.
No, I'm trying this clam chowder, so. I think I had it before I'm curious. Yeah, I had it. I'm gonna be pretty much full after this. No, but that bowl I ate before I got on stream was really good. It was like a homemade famous bowl. That's where I got the bowl from. It's good, but it's not the best.
Trying to make this her night. Her moment, but Sasha's got something left. And the boss with the right hands. I don't know, Byron. I think Charlotte's good. When he left him and now face first off the chair. These are the risks.
I think Banks loses this from memory. Could be wrong.
They knew exactly what the risk was. They knew how this could short their career, but they wanted it so bad. Oh, no, 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 no! No! Let's go to the chair! Back first out of the chair! You're right, Byron. The only thing they're more driven by than the Raw Women's Championship is the ability to write history. We're witnessing it right now. The ability to write history, break through any glass ceilings. Coming for the championship by Charlotte and Sasha. Stay in it. Watch this again. Sasha gets like that. And here's Sasha screaming, crying around the ring in agony. I think this is just a perfect example of genetic superiority on behalf of Charlotte. She's bigger, she's stronger, she's faster. It also has something to do with she shot into Sasha before the match started. And again, working on the injured back of Sasha. Look at the way that Charlotte's got it twisted around this ring post. Not meant to bend that way. I think a referee should stop this. This is just prolonging the agony of Sasha Banks. That's what they're doing. Sasha Banks. Something that she's going through right now. I understand that. Sasha's killing it. Someone has to look out for the well-being of these two superstars. It's not going to be them. Spider-Man scaling the wall. Oh, double knees to Charlotte. Good grief. Did you see that? Charlotte, feel that.
We all saw it.
I saw it. I
Goddamn.
have no earthly idea how it happened. But I definitely saw it. What resourcefulness from the boss. Let's just see, this is incredible. Like you said, like Spider-Man or Spider-Woman. But catching Charlotte. Critical moment now, the matchup. Who can make it to their feet first? Who can shift the momentum? Look at this one more time. Sasha adjusting his pin. Oh, that left knee caught Charlotte right in the jaw. Oh, after that one, I did too. Here's the first one. Charlotte into the cell. Guys, you feel the momentum shifting to Sasha a little bit here. You feel the champion starting to take over. Sasha trying to do it energy. Oh, wow. Into the cell. Pin Charlotte in the cell. Hers again to make Charlotte do every ounce of pain. Double knees. Every ounce of pain that Charlotte has made Sasha feel. Pinfall or submission. Only way to win. The impact here. The double knees. The shins. Sasha right in the face. Charlotte. Sasha bringing the attack to Charlotte. Suplex. Looking to pay homage to her hero, the late great Eddie Guerrero. Oh, in fact, somehow holding up. I don't know how Sasha's got enough left. I don't know how either. It's like the Monicans here. And the Eddie chance. Thunder throughout the TD Garden. And who inspired her at 10 years old to pursue her dream. Get the feet inside the ring. I guarantee he's looking down with a smile at this matchup. Sasha and Charlotte. The Raw Women's Championship.
That wasn't that good. There's like no clam in it.
Somehow again.
Fuck.
Charlotte trying to make through the hole, but remember, guys, wants to make a play here. Sasha really hold on. And Charlotte wisely was right down in the ring. Power advantage.
Hi, babies.
Long legs of Charlotte. Pain dividends there. Sasha, though, needs to the midsection. Not where Charlotte wants to be. Charlotte. Sasha to retain. Charlotte kicks out.
The chair was already mangled for being used before, and Sasha Banks set it up underneath the spine of Charlotte before driving the knees down. Take a look at this.
My cat wants attention. One of my cats, I should say. One of the cats, I should say. That always gives one at first.
Driving through her rib cage. Into that steel chair. Sasha uses steel chair. Oh, no!
Hey.
Oh, my God! This son, is he in the steps? Look to me.
Bad. You don't go jumping in trash. Go. Go.
She drove Sasha face first.
Go.
Watch this here. Oh, the steps. Face first off the top of the steps. You hear that, bud?
Okay, this is only my second can. Yeah, it is. Oh, I'm drunk. And hungover. Wait, what? That don't make sense.
This will destroy Sasha.
The reward even worth the risk at this point. These two women are going to destroy one another.
Charlotte looking
No.
for a suplex from the top.
Go.
Sasha able to block.
Go.
Charlotte laying right on the apron there and trying to keep her balance. Oh, Charlotte to a table activated kick by Sasha.
What?
Now could Sasha take advantage?
What do you want?
Retain the Raw Women's Championship.
I'm gonna get off.